Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday, November 17th, 2025. I'm going to call the Town of Morristown Selectboard meeting to order. It is 5:30. Do we have any agenda changes or additions?
No.
Community comments. Do we have any community comments? If so, please come up to the microphone and let us know who you are.
I'm Jerry Throne. I want to say I am enjoying the new holiday snowflakes, lit snowflakes. They're very nice and attractive, and I think it'll do the town good.
Thank you. I believe that was the village that put those up today.
Thank you, the village.
Some at all.
At least I saw village trucks putting them up today.
Kathy Chafee, I zoomed in 2 weeks ago to you. I expected a phone call back from somebody on my concerns about that, but I haven't heard from anybody.
Okay, sorry about that.
Last 2 weeks. We got probably $300 worth of damage here. I don't know what the process is or how you're gonna continue on with this. I don't care if it's public, but somebody needs to keep in contact with me. And after I go over this with you, if I don't hear back from somebody by Wednesday at noon, I'm gonna call the state department, health department.
Yeah.
So the first picture is a brand new horse blanket last year. This time of year, we take them out, wash them, waterproof them, get them ready for the horses. Second picture is the first hole. About $150 a horse blanket. Third picture is the stuffing taken out. Here, pass that around if you want. Anybody wants to see it?
Yes.
Fourth picture is a donkey's blanket. Now I'll have to buy a new one of them. Hung on the line, my backyard, clothesline, 2 days. Last picture is the dead relatives. What are we gonna do? We have dumpsters behind the school. We have 2 trash cans at the dog park. We have the community church across the street that has an outside food shelf that has bread, cereal, everything in it. 3 houses up the road's got a whole backyard full of chickens. We got an issue. I have an issue. And it's a health issue. I don't know if you want me to go this route by myself, but I'll take it by myself if I have to. I'll work with you if you guys want to work with me, but if you don't want to work with me, then I'll find other means. I asked to be put on the budget, on the agenda, so I don't just get a head shake. So I can get answers. But I haven't been allowed to do that. Any answers from anybody? What's
Kathy,
happened?
Kathy, the only thing I would say is our health officer has been made aware of this.
Yeah, we're not really able to respond to something that's not on the agenda, but we've been in contact with the state several times. And there will be flyers, etc., mailed out and information to people in the neighborhood about how to prevent rats or mice from forming in any neighborhoods. But we've had extensive well, not we, my staff has had extensive communications with the state and other resources.
So how come in the last 2 weeks, somebody hasn't had the respect to call me and go through that with me? It's a very stressful job. I have 9 directors I work under, answer the phone, the door, have 130 people that come to me on any given time of the day. And you're making me do this.
I wasn't aware that you weren't followed up with. I'll make sure that you're followed up with.
Thank you, Brent. Yeah, so we can make sure the health officer does follow up with Kathy. I'm sorry, Kathy. I thought I just assumed somebody had followed up with you. So
Well, in this day and age, we can't assume anything,
You're probably right.
so. So when do you think those flyers are gonna go out?
Tuesday.
They're gonna be mailed to us?
Yeah.
Because Congress Street's complaining now, I mean, Court Street's complaining now too.
We'll look into the addresses, and if Tyler doesn't call you tomorrow, I'll call you personally. I do not know off the top of my head what consists of the neighborhood, but there's a mailing list that he has generated. I just don't recall what streets it is.
So any other thing comes up, I can expect a phone call maybe?
I would expect somebody to get in contact with you. I would hope somebody would get in contact with you soon. Thank you.
So if not, I'm emailing you.
Yeah, yeah, please do. Please do. Anybody else? Community comments? There was a hand online, but that disappeared. Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Minutes, we have minutes from November 3rd. I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of November 3rd.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion by Leah and a second by George. Was that the meeting you were not at?
Not there.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the minutes from November 3rd? By the way, I'm going to stop right now. I've been looking up there. Laura, are you there? You're muted, Laura, if you are, Laura.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. You're a little quiet, but that's you. Okay.
Be quiet, go figure.
So Laura, we will be on all our votes tonight. We will be taking a roll call. So we have a motion to accept the minutes. Laura, I don't know if you heard that from November 3rd by Leah and a second by George. Any discussion? Any thoughts on that, Laura?
Nope.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes, George? Richard?
Abstain.
That was an abstention from Richard. Leah
Aye.
and Laura? Laura, how do you vote?
Aye.
Okay, so, and the chair votes aye as well, so that would be 4-0-1. Thank you. We have minutes from November 10th,
I'll move to approve
2025.
Minutes of 11/10/2025.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion by Richard and a second by George. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the minutes as presented, George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Leah? Laura?
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Thank you. Okay, new business. We have a presentation. We were all given a presentation in our packet as well. I believe Maggie is here. Maggie, are you doing this? Kara is not going to be able to be here. Okay. So Maggie Cleary is here to do the presentation, and so I'm going to give you the floor here. So discussions about recreation and wellness.
Hi, I'm Maggie Cleary. I'm a Morristown resident. And I have been working with a few community members. Kara Hansey did a lot of work on getting some stuff together for tonight. She had a work commitment that she couldn't break. So yeah, I just I'm basically presenting this. And I figured it is kind of relevant to be like, who am I and why me? Really the major answer to the why me is because nobody else would do it. And so here I am. It can be very intimidating, I think, for a lot of people to sit up here and try to communicate publicly for all kinds of various reasons. And many people just have reasons that they can't be here. So I am just a community member. I am not an expert on municipal recreation by any means. But I live in this town and I kind of have my head and hands in a lot of different places. I'm a parent. I have an 8th grader and an aunt of 2 elementary school students. They live right around the corner from me. So my parent role in this town is a big part of where I'm speaking from tonight. I do work at the public library in town, at the Morristown Centennial Library, so a lot of people might know me from there. Just wanting to be clear that I'm not speaking in any way for the library tonight. I'm just speaking as a citizen. Although my work at the library does inform a lot of my thoughts and feelings about town. Just the nature of the work at the public library is I see a lot of community members of all ages and socioeconomic classes and political persuasions. And I speak with a lot of people as part of my daily work, and I work with a lot of people. I also am, my technical role at the library is I am the outreach librarian, which means that I'm the one on staff who's thinking about making connections and partnerships with other nonprofit organizations in town, the schools, and various other organizations in town. So I have really formed nice relationships through the years with people running and volunteering at all of our local nonprofits and service organizations. I spend a lot of time in different places as well as at the library, in all 3 of our schools. I do a preschool outreach, so I'm in almost all of our local public and private and home-based daycare preschools at some point, senior centers, Lemoyle Community House, Capstone, the Copley Hospital. So I am in and out of a lot of different places in the community, and that helps inform the things that I think and feel. So just giving you that little background. I also have a lot of experience, like a big part of my background is in restaurant work all over the county. I've been waiting tables at various restaurants around the county since I was 15 years old. Up until last year, I've been out for almost a whole year, so we'll see if that sticks. But that actually also those experiences also kind of dictate how I think about things in town. I have spent time volunteering with Meals on Wheels, Lemoyle Community Food Share. I helped out a bunch with the start of the Morrisville Food Co-op. And I did serve on Morristown's rec committee that in its kind of probably most vibrant window, which was in the mid to late teens, 20 teens. I did step back when I took a full-time job in Waterbury, and so there was a time period where I wasn't on that while it was happening. My job in Waterbury also is a little bit relevant as well. I did 2 years at the Waterbury Public Library, which is a municipal library, and has really, for that reason, a very close relationship with the town office and town government. It was actually in a shared building, and I did a lot of partnering with Waterbury Rec during that time period. So it just kind of gives me a little interesting perspective to see ways that other towns do things, and the partnerships that can be formed when there's kind of that community support. So all those things, again, bringing us back to, I'm not an expert, I'm just a community member, but I do have a lot of different visions to look at this town from, which do inform the ways I think about these things. Municipal rec is not, my number one community issue of, it probably, if I had to rank which things I want to go to bat for, municipal rec might not even have been in the, top 3. But I do, as a person in this town, as a parent, and with my role at the library, it's just impossible for me to ignore the really important piece of the puzzle that municipal rec plays in the ecosystem of human being care in this town. So that's where I'm coming from, with that. So we did kind of put together a little packet. And I think I threw away the wrong page, but that's okay. So starting just to like get us all in the same place of kind of thinking about this kind of stuff. When me and Kara have been talking about this a lot, and this is kind of something I'm interested in, is this idea of a social infrastructure, which is not like a term that I invented. This is something that is in like social science, basically. That's how they kind of talk about, it's defined as the spaces and institutions that shape how people interact. And there's a lot of really great research showing the ways that social infrastructure is as important as our physical infrastructure, right? So like is important to a healthy functioning and financially stable society. So kind of this, this idea that like the ways that we interact as people and the ways we get together and spend time together and how that all plays out isn't just this kind of like frivolous extra thing that we do on the side. It's actually like a really important part of our community and our society and a strong and healthy and functioning society. So when our social infrastructure is maintained and invested in, it fosters trust, cooperation, and social ties among diverse groups of people in a community, and actually makes those communities more resilient in times of crisis. So you can imagine how that kind of stuff plays out. It's like, we all have our things that we are interested in, but if we all just kind of like branch out into our separate little niche interests, then we're all just sort of doing those in little pockets, and people tend to gravitate towards the people that are like them and do the things that they do. But if we are provided with an infrastructure where people from different groups, different generations, different socioeconomic classes, different political persuasions, can get together and be together and enjoy community together, it can have a really huge impact on reducing polarization, strengthening local democracy, rebuilding trust in institutions. And I think these are all things that many of us watching, society play out right now would agree do have some value. So, I do a lot of thinking about the social infrastructure of Morrisville, and that's part of my library work, but also just as a citizen, and it's just something I'm interested in. So it's like, what makes up our social infrastructure in Morrisville, and whose job is it to think about this and make these connections? So obviously there can be things, like, libraries are a big part of them, parks, there's physical spaces where we all get together. But it can also be networks of people and partnerships between things that already exist, but strengthening those partnerships makes for the chance that we're all coming together in different ways, more powerful. So just kind of putting that out there as like the way we think about this. I guess I'm starting from the assumption that most of us can agree that our social infrastructure is important, does need to be maintained, and doesn't just take care of itself. So like a public investment in this can be really powerful, because that's the way that we're saying, like, as a community, we value the ways that we all get together and interact. So municipal rec can be a really important piece of this puzzle, and especially in like a smallish town like ours, where we might not have some of the like robust other structures that exist. Municipal rec could play a really powerful role in connecting local government to the social infrastructure stuff that already exists out there. And I think that that is like a piece that is really missing right now, and we could really benefit from. So we just put together, ways that municipal recreation as an entity can contribute to a stronger, more connected, and more resilient society. So I think some of these are like totally obvious ones, and then some of them, I think are worth mentioning because we might not think of them right away. So number one, build social connections. Public recreation brings people together across age, class, and cultural lines. Shared activities create opportunities for casual interactions and friendships. So like those different types of human interactions, we have our powerful friendships, which are super important, but also that, there's increasing studies going on basically that show that those like casual interactions that you have in town are actually really important glues for society in general.
strengthening social trust and cooperation. So these bonds form the social glue that helps communities thrive and respond collectively to challenges. 2, promotes health and well-being. This is probably one that people really think of when they think of recreation, is that physical and mental health piece. But really having affordable, accessible recreation for all people improves our collective physical and mental health, which is something that I think we all can value. Because it feels good, it improves our quality of life, and it also saves us a lot of money. Physical and mental health adds to rising healthcare costs and all kinds of problems that nobody wants. Recreation programs provide safe, structured outlets for young people. So that's an important piece of this, and we will talk a little more about that specific kid part of this, which is important. But yeah, I mean, supporting positive development and preventing social problems like isolation, disengagement, and negative behaviors. So that really kind of comes into play, particularly with our summer rec program, is kind of, the big thing we think of when we think about municipal rec, is our support for our summer rec program, which is really the only form of school age, affordable all day long childcare for those kids in that like elementary school age. And the reality is that without it, some people are fine and they'll drive their kids to Stowe for their summer rec program. And some of them will stay home alone, and some of them will stay home and watch TV all day, or some of them will be home with grandma and, be watching TV all day. And there's just so much we gain as a community when our kids are collectively cared for together. And there's just, there's so much we could do with the summer rec program that connects us to different adults in town that could provide mentorship for kids. And I'd love to see us wrap our community around that. And then Kara did add on in our town plan on this one. We actually have, as part of our Morristown plan, there's a wellness chapter that basically says that we support these different forms of wellness. And there just really isn't anyone to think about that right now. So we cared about it at some point enough to write it into our town plan. But without a staff person or somebody to kind of guide that work, a lot of the stuff just falls to the wayside, which is understandable. Number 3, fostering inclusion and equity. Public recreation spaces are among the few places where everyone has equal access regardless of income or background. This is essential. Yeah, I mean, of course, we can sign our kids up for this thing or that thing, or as a senior citizen, you could, pay for yoga classes or this or that. But when we have public recreation that brings us all together and is accessible to all people, it's only going to make our community stronger. When towns invest in recreation for all, they bridge socioeconomic and generational divides and promote a sense of belonging among residents. I really believe that. Number 4, strengthens local identity and pride. Community events and shared public spaces foster civic pride and a sense of ownership over one's community. I think we see that play out all the time in our Oktoberfest and our Festival of Lights and our Wednesday Night Live stuff. And I think as a community, we obviously are acknowledging that stuff has value, right? Nobody has to go listen to music on a Wednesday night, and nobody needs to go down to Oktoberfest and hang out with their community all day, but that stuff does have value, and it does increase the sense of pride in our community. And civic pride matters. It matters to our bottom line, even if you don't think it matters. People who feel connected to their community are more likely to volunteer, vote, and participate in local governance. So how do we get them connected? The nice thing about municipal recreation is it's like a really great gateway for people into municipal government and into just community involvement. So, it's the kind of thing that when you first move to town, or if you're not so sure about joining a committee, recreation oftentimes is a way that people get involved. And once they're involved, they're more likely to volunteer, they're more likely to vote, they're more likely to support the people who are volunteering their time up here and participate in positive ways. And I think that one place that we could really encourage growth in this town would be increasing volunteerism. And I think probably that's something we can all sort of get behind, but we need to provide venues to get people in the door to that. And recreation has a lot of potential to do that. Number 5, boost economic health. So quality recreational amenities can attract residents and businesses, supporting local economies. In our town, I think about the potential of the rail trail, and other walking, skiing and biking trails. We have a lot out there. We don't need to have, a rec center. I mean, obviously that'd be dreamy, but, we don't have to like invest in major infrastructure. But we do need to kind of connect the dots with the stuff that's already there and make sure people know about it. And we can leverage these things to support our businesses and to support our downtown. And giving up on the human being stuff is bad for business. Like I think one of the strongest ways to support our local businesses in this town is to keep a positive growth momentum behind this community. I hear a lot of like giving upness out there, and that's not helping anybody make $1 in downtown Morrisville. A strong municipal recreation program attracts younger people and families and supports them in staying here. This is essential. We all know we have an aging population, and that is certainly something we can work with, and we certainly need to support our aging population. But in order to keep this town financially viable, we need to be able to attract families and young people. And the way to do that is through things like recreation. Like that is the kind of stuff that parents look for. That is the kind of thing that younger people, even before they have children, look for in a town. That is what attracts them to a community. So I think it's really important that we remember that we had a tough year in town in the last year for supporting things that support families. Within like a handful of months, we lost our teen center. We took a big cut to our library's budget. We lost our entire recreation funding. We almost completely lost summer rec, and it kind of came back, sort of. And we've just lost our birthing center, which we just saw play out in the last couple of weeks. So even though all those things are technically separate entities with separate funding, and we can't address them all, the combined effect of them on the ecosystem of care for our families and young people in this town has been really catastrophic, I guess. I hate to exaggerate, but as far as their day-to-day functionality as families and as children in this town, and as far as civic pride and trust in governance, like we lost a lot last year as far as families trusting the systems and the organizations that once supported them. And I would love to see us do something to build that back as best we can. And then still in economic health section, summer rec isn't just like fun and games for the kids. Summer rec provides vital, affordable, and accessible summer childcare for school-aged children so that their parents can go to work. It's crucial. It really just is. And if we're not going to do it, we need to talk about it soon so that we can figure out what's going to fill that hole for people. Okay, number 6, builds resilience in times of crisis. There's been a lot of really cool social science work done about this, about how like communities that have like strong social infrastructure and are supporting their human beings in normal times, when times of crisis come in, they are stronger, they're more resilient, they're more healthy, and they bounce back faster. And I think that is not something to turn our noses up at. The world is an unpredictable place. And then the last one I love, generates long-term returns on civic trust. So investment in public recreation builds trust in local government. It's the kind of thing that like people can tangibly see, right? I know so much of what we do can be hard to communicate to the people out there. And there's so much work that happens behind the scene in municipal government. And many of us who come to these kind of meetings know that and see that, but it's hard to see if you're not sitting in this room and you're not one of you guys and you're not in the town government. So public recreation is like one of those things that people are like, ooh, this is happening. The municipal government is doing something for us here, and we can give something back by volunteering. So this civic engagement makes communities more cooperative and efficient in tackling future challenges, right? So I'm really interested in the ways that we can't predict all the things that are going to come our way, and there are so many challenges that come, but if we are investing, like even just small scale, in these systems of communication and trust and care for each other throughout the normal times, then when things change and adjust, we're just that much more flexible and able to do so. So in summary, supporting municipal recreation is not just about fun or fitness, even though fun or fitness is awesome also. It's a long-term investment in community strength, equity, and democracy. Creating accessible spaces where people can connect, learn, and belong. We lay the groundwork for a healthier, more cohesive, and more resilient society. Municipal recreation is not just a cost, and we should really try not to look at it just that way. It's a high return public investment that boosts property values and tax revenue, lowers healthcare and social costs, strengthens the local economy, and improves quality of life and community resilience. And I think all those things are things that we can all get behind. So that was kind of a mouthful and kind of a lot of like bigger picture ideas, but I think it's really important for us sometimes in these spaces to acknowledge that kind of stuff and why it's important. So I would love to see us be able to work that more into some of our decision making, like how does what we do here have an impact on our social infrastructure? How is it affecting local democracy? How is it affecting people's, community spirit? Like those kinds of things that are not quite so easy to measure, but have real impact on our community. So anyway, quick history of Morristown Rec, just because it is relevant, that this didn't just kind of fall out of the sky and all of a sudden everybody wants it. So Morristown Parks and Rec originally had a commission that was formed in 1949, and Summer Rec's been around since 1957, which I actually just found out and love hearing. And so Summer Rec was run by parent volunteers for many years. And that was something that kind of worked in the past. In about the mid 20 teens, we were really starting to get clear about the fact that a staff person was needed to run Summer Rec. It is not the kind of thing that can be run by a parent volunteer. Just in the modern day, it's just not. So we kind of started to have conversations about revamping a rec committee in town. It had there was like some movement about it in the 90s, and then that sort of died away a little bit. And then in the late 20-teens, we started to talk about it again. So there was an ad hoc recreation committee that formed, all volunteers. They put out a pretty comprehensive survey that a good chunk of people in town responded to. And there was a lot of real positive momentum around this. And this survey still exists if anybody wants to read it. It's actually kind of really interesting to read. It's not just like a multiple choice, like people really put some time and, put some real thought into it. And what came out of that was kind of like a comprehensive study of like, what do we already have here? What's already working? What is our rec infrastructure that already exists? And how do we connect it? And what do people want to see? And what are the barriers to knowing about what's out there? And so from that, rec committee started, and we actually did a bunch of things. It was kind of nice to read back over that stuff and be like, oh yeah. So we were connected pretty strongly to the town offices through our former community development director. And also Sarah was on the committee, which was a wonderful connection to have. So it was a volunteer organization, but it was very connected to town government and very supported by town government. So in that time period, we established an online rec management software. We compiled a lot of information for a recreation website because that was something that people really had asked for, is having all that information in one space that people could access. We maintained the town ice rink, got a nice little revamp in that time period. And that's why it's existing now. They did a RISE grant for snowshoes at the library. We did events, a bike day, a wellness day, Wednesday night live stuff. So, it was like this active group of citizens that was volunteering time and being like, let's build up, keep building up our rec program. And meanwhile, advocating for a rec position. So to lead the recreation efforts and specifically to take on summer rec. But at the time we had a lot of great, feelings about of course this person would lead summer rec, but imagine all they could do for all the other ages and people in town. So we, through all that advocacy and volunteer work, a full-time rec position was secured, I think in 2023. I had a hard time remembering and I didn't feel like digging, but it was sometime in that time period, a little earlier, 22 maybe. Yeah, so sometime in there, yeah, because they were running summer rec by 23, I think. And then in that time period, the rec committee disbanded, which in retrospect was probably a mistake. It was probably good having that community support. And I think if we ever dove back into this again, we would need to provide better support. So yeah, our rec director led summer rec in 2024, which so not this summer, but last summer. And we had 120 kids participating. So certainly there was a need out there. And then last year in our budget, that position was cut. Our rec director went on maternity leave. So there was kind of this like hole, I think, in that winter period. And then the position was cut last year, and summer rec was almost cut last year, but I think a lot of people advocated. I think that was like a very scary reality for a lot of parents, especially, and I think other community members who recognize the value of that program. So there was a lot of people advocating, and amazingly, some of our staff members in the town office who don't have time for that were able to pull together a summer rec program for last year, which is super important. And I definitely do not want to, like, that was a huge thing to be able to do for the people that it affected. However, they were given some pretty strict parameters in trying to develop this rec program, mainly that it couldn't cost the town $1. So it had to fully take care of itself. So what we ended up with was a summer rec program that was less weeks. I think they shaved off a week on both sides, and less flexibility. There was no more ability to like do it a week at a time, which is really important to parents trying to like piece the whole thing together. And considerably more expensive than it had been the year before, and even like considerably more expensive than Stowe Rec. And by the time we got it together, it was like people were already panicking about getting their kids into something. So we ended up losing a lot of our kids last summer. So we had about 30 kids participating in summer rec last year, which, you know, still for those families, absolutely crucial. And I'm so glad we were able to make that happen. The unfortunate reality of that, though, is that we did lose, like, anybody who can drive to Stowe is now driving to Stowe. And, you know, we'll see if we can pull something together to get them back. So currently there is, you know, we do have some bones still left. Our web-based recreation software still exists. So we use that for different things for town, things that involve people having to sign up and pay for things. And that, you know, is still there for the potential to use for all kinds of other things. Turkey Trot still going on. Summer rec does still exist at this time, although I think it is important to be honest about the fact that there is no one in the town office that can take that on for this summer. So we are like in a very real situation of summer rec not happening this year unless we do something different. We can't put that on the staff again this summer. Our ice skating rink is back in the game and is going to be going again this winter, thanks to the awesome volunteer efforts of Mike Johnson. So that's a great example of the ways you can get volunteers excited about projects. Community garden, still an active thing. Those guys are like meeting and having meetings at the library regularly, and it's so nice to see them. They formed a really nice community together. And then volunteer energy is, you know, it's out there, and it's like a great way to catch those busy parents, because it's a tangible thing that they can see the benefits of, and it's a great way to get people back into volunteering in this town. Love to see that. I'm gonna like really run through quick the neighboring community examples, but I think we just put this on here to show that as much as I hate to do the like, we can't like compare towns, you know, exactly, but other communities are doing this, and it's not an insurmountable thing. Johnson, right next door, which is a smaller town than us, and has had a lot of troubles in the past few years with the changes up at the college and with what's happening with flooding in their downtown. I think it's really interesting to note that they are holding on to a part-time rec director who is tying all of their youth sports programming together and adult programming and making use of their local fields and their facilities and partnering with the college and partnering with other entities to try to make sure that those connections stay. So Johnson's doing a lot of work right now in rebuilding and deciding who they want to be, and they have decided that keeping a part-time rec director is essential. Stowe obviously has a thriving recreation program. It's always hard to compare ourselves to Stowe. Obviously, they got a different thing going on over there than we do. But one nice thing about our next doorness to Stowe and our connection to them is, since they have such a well-established program and they have these like true professionals running their recreation department, they are great resources for us. And you can call them up on the phone and they're great with advice. They're interested in partnering, and it's just, we shouldn't forget our next door neighbors. And Waterbury is an interesting one for me, as I was saying, because I used to work there, and the only reason, again, you can't like compare line for line with towns, but when we were having our budget discussions last year and cutting our library and cutting rec, I called the town office because I still have some friends there, and just sort of like had a nice conversation with Karen in the town office and just talking about how they do things. And I just think it's interesting in Waterbury, which is a town population wise that's just about the same size as us, maybe a little bit less people. And their town their municipal library budget is $631,000 a year, and their recreation budget is $605,000 a year, which is a pretty substantial investment for a town about our size. And they're at the end of the day, their town budget is considerably less than ours for various reasons. But I just thought, like, how interesting, and like maybe having conversations with them as a community to be like, what went into your decision making and deciding to front load invest in this social infrastructure, right? And how are you seeing that play out in your town? I just love the idea of sharing ideas with our local towns. St. Johnsbury just reestablished a full-time position after a little hiatus for their rec, so they're valuing that. Wolcott, even though they're tiny and flooding, they're like part of their rebuilding effort is they're investing in this community town forest with their trails and their connection to rail trail. A lot of their discussions in town right now in like, who are we and who are we going to be in the future, connects to investing in their recreation potential. So a lot of people are seeing this. Oh, and St. Albans was on here because Kara was so interested when the guy came to talk about local option tax, and he was just casually mentioned that St. Albans was able to build a pool with their local option tax, and now they can like use it to drive people from other communities who are paying to use this pool and bringing people to their downtown. And so just the potential that's there, and just reminding ourselves that recreation is growth. It's not just cost. So all of our neighbors have the theme of community connection and commitment to social infrastructure above and beyond schools, individual sports boards, and nonprofits. So that's a really important piece of it too, is like, we have the schools and we do have individual sports. But I think our schools would agree that having a community that wraps around the kids outside of the school system is essential. I'll breeze through this. This is just potential recreation partners. Kind of the idea, the reason we put that on there is because it's important for us all to remember that saying as a town that we agree that recreation is something isn't to invest in doesn't mean that we need to build like a $2 million facility of recreation, everything, like we can dream big, but we don't need to. There is this in-between place where having someone who is dedicated to recreation and willing to be able to create partnerships and create relationships, a lot can be done that way. I just am thinking about summer rec. I mean, summer rec comes down to the library once a week and visits us, and how powerful that is for like some of those kids are like, we barely ever see. I'm like, who are some of these kids, which is like to be still meeting kids, but having those kids be in our public library once a week and then seeing them like come back with their grandma after rec to show her, it's like, that's the kind of stuff. It doesn't cost anything, but it's such a big deal, The Conservation Commission, we had members of our Conservation Commission donate time to take kids on exploratory walks and journeys up in our town forest, it's like, it's up there. Can we get our kids up there, and get some of our seniors volunteering their time to hang out with our kids. I love the idea of like, how can we be like, these are all of our kids, right? You know, like whether you have a kid in the school system or not, you know, we should care about the health and development of our kids. I want us all to. Okay. Oh, we got a quote from Carol Lauber, our MAC board chair, who's just, Carol was just bringing out the great point that the Vermont economy, a huge chunk of the Vermont economy is outdoor recreation. And that is one of the most powerful growth places for us. So Morrisville sits in the middle of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. We have the most Lamoille Valley Rail Trail visitor interactions than any other section. So think about like the kind of connections that if we had somebody focusing on that kind of stuff, like how are we using that awesome asset that people are using and connecting it to our downtown corridor. And connecting our people to that also. Okay, what else? We got, I mean, so we've just like have been reaching out to other parents and people who couldn't be here, but basically like things people are saying, like, yes, of course we are building a community here. We need to have resources available for all ages. Summer rec program is vital for many of our working families. I liked this executive director of Lamoille of North Country Animal League put some like really thoughtful responses into this little survey we put out. But she says, I think this could also be a chance to build a collaborative recreation network involving the library, schools, and nonprofits so that no one organization carries the full weight. I've seen similar models work beautifully in other towns where recreation programs were community-led and supported through partnerships rather than a single department. So I loved that perspective of no one organization carries the full weight. So just having somebody in our town government that's connecting to these other organizations. And that's something, you know, again, I'm not speaking for the Morristown Library, but coming out of last winter's kind of like crash and burn for all of our family things, we lost the teen center and those kids now hang out at the library every day after school. Probably not all of them, but a chunk of them. Losing summer rec, it's like, what does that mean for our summer time? So like, there's like this, we're happy to do it at the library. We love it. We would never want to turn any kid away. We're glad we're busy, but after school every day downstairs, we are servicing 30 middle schoolers while also like everyone else who comes in to use the library, little kids and parents and all the people. So as much as we want to wrap our arms around every kid in town, spatially, we just can't. We are sort of at the point, and we have these discussions lately where we're kind of like we can't like even like advertise, or like we basically can't take too many more kids into our space any after school. And so we do need there to be a network of places for kids to be. We can't be the only game in town. And also not every kid is a library kid, you know, it's important for kids to be able to have other choices and places to be, especially that middle school age. It's really nice for them to be able to like have a little choice, and know that there are multiple places in town where they can walk in the door and they're welcomed and that people want them to be there and that they care about them and care what they're doing with their time. So professionally, I would love to see other things in town exist to help us care for our kids. So, and then this town needs to start investing in its residents is another quote from a community member. And I very much agree. We talk about all the different things, you know, like Jordan gave that awesome presentation about the roads that time last year, which I loved, when he was just so able to clearly and concisely be like, if we keep neglecting our roads and if we don't perform this maintenance and we don't get ahead of things, then it's going to cost us more money in the long run. And it's harder to make those really clear-cut, concrete analogies when we talk about human beings, but it doesn't make it any less real. If we keep choosing not to invest in people in our town, we will see the negative benefit, the negative effects of that, you know, especially with our kids, but really with all of our people. Like that is one thing about being at the library that makes me realize too, how much adults need too, you know, adults need human interaction, and adults need things to do, and they need to feel connected, and they're looking for it, they're showing up. And I don't want to see us give up on our people because we think that we can't do it. Because I think we can do it, and I think if we do it, we will see positive growth that it can pay for itself, you know, much the same way that Jordan's like, it'll cost us more money in the long run, and everyone's like, yes, that's true, great. But it'll cost us more money, and so even if you only care about money, you care about this, you know, you do. Okay, so our ask, we have gone around the bush with this a million times, trying to like, can we like figure out some way to keep summer rec going without a staff person, because we very much understand the reality of the budget and the reality of people's perceptions in town. And I would love to be able to be like, yeah, we can do this without having another staff person, but no matter how many ways we look at it, no one has come up with a way that we can run the summer rec program, even for this summer, without a staff person, a strong staff person to do it. Someone with experience who knows how to run a program with kids. And if we had someone, the potential for that would be so exciting, you know, like to think about how they could engage our teenagers and how they could start the teenagers who want to work there early and train them and have an after school thing for the teenagers. And, you know, I mean, there's just so much potential. So we recommend that we bring a municipal recreation person back to town government. So, you know, we had one, we did all the volunteer work to build up and make the case for one, and we had one, and it kind of, the rug just kind of got ripped out from under us last year. And so here we are begging for it back, you know, I guess is really what it comes down to. We think that if we were able to get a recreation person back, it would be essential for that person to be supported by a strong volunteer board, which I think that we could pretty easily regather, because it's hard to run summer rec, and it is hard to engage with people, and it is hard to put up with the scrutiny that comes with being a public staff person, especially in the current climate. So having people to support that person in their role would be essential for its success. So, you know, that staff person would be a year-round person supporting a thriving and successful summer recreation camp, including hiring, training, connections for summer staffing, studying the needs of the community, creating community partnerships, building programming. Our summer rec program does not have to be fancy. We do not need to go on fancy field trips every single week. You know, we could certainly get sponsorships from around town. We could do a lot with what we have here in town with connecting our kids to what already exists, but we do need a strong person to lead that. And then that same staff person can support the current administration of town employees, being an essential partner in the team, doing the important work, thinking about the human beings of our community. And that's everyone across the board, from kids all the way up through seniors. I think it is something that we could all see the benefits of. And basically they would be executing the work of supporting our social infrastructure. That is what we'd like to see, and that's what we're asking to be on the discussion for this year's budget. There is a little, if anybody's interested at the end, we just put some resources for further reading, because we kind of put a lot of big ideas out there, and there is information out there to back out those big ideas. It's not just things we made up. One book that I would recommend, that I know I've recommended to you guys before too, that is just like really kind of like easy reading. Like there's a bunch of studies on here. You certainly are welcome to read if you're like a data person and you like that kind of stuff. But if you're interested in these ideas, this book called Palaces for the People, How Social Infrastructure Helps Fight Equality, Polarization, and the Decline of Civic Life by Eric Kleinenberg. He's a social scientist, and he did a lot of really cool work pulling together a lot of studies on this kind of stuff. And he just puts it all together in a nice package that's like easy reading, or or you could Google him and listen to some of his interviews. He's an interesting guy. But if you're interested in those ideas, there's a lot of information out there. And I'd be happy to talk about that with anybody after, if anybody's interested.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you very much. It was very well presented. There's a lot of information there, and I know you got through it as quickly as you could, but thoroughly and efficiently as well. I know for me, it was, there's an awful lot to agree with in here. In fact, there's very little to disagree with, if any. I know that was true of me over the weekend when I was reading through this. It's also a good reminder of some of the history that has taken place with recreation in this town, not just the last couple of years, but 1957 actually is older than me. So that's truly a lifetime of recreation in this town. So thank you very much. So with that, I would like to just open it up to the board for discussion. Maggie and Kara and others that have been involved in this have put a pretty clear ask out there and backed it up with an awful lot of information. So I just want to give the board a chance to comment.
I feel that something we need to give some thought to, and I appreciate everything you've done. I kept on coming around to the term recreation, and I don't disagree with it, but I feel like it could be more of a community collaboration. And I've had a lot of interactions with the school itself, and I know the school has a bunch of, this is one of the things that I've seen. The school has a bunch of programs, and I don't really know how they're funded or how they come about, but there's 25 or 30 kids 2 or 3 days a week at the school doing, high school kids doing volunteer stuff with elementary school kids. And I think that that's something that we definitely need to have. But I do also think that we do need to support our elderly people and people of all ages in some thing. And the comments about community connections, I wouldn't probably be here had I not had opportunities that were put in front of me to be involved and be active in our community outside of recreation.
Leah?
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Maggie. I agree with much of what you say. When I first moved into town, my husband was born and raised here, and he said, "Oh yeah, we've always had a summer rec program." I never went, but I did have a lot of friends that did. I had trouble finding childcare for my children. And we did use the rec program because it literally was the only option that we had at the time. And when I worked at the hospital, I also worked with the Blueprint for Health, which was also about building communities that were recreation friendly for all ages. I think that's where the snowshoes, lending the snowshoes from the library kind of came about, those kind of ideas. So when I think about recreation, I think about all ages, because I think that senior citizens working with younger people, there's a lot of synergy there, and there can be a lot of cross interest there, even a mentoring program, something. And then I started taking a look around town about all the different programs and activities that are being offered. And there's already so many things happening, but they're in pockets. And I think it's a way to kind of bring a lot of things together. I think it's doable. And I think it is something that the town should be investing in.
George?
Yep, thank you. I also want to say thank you. It was a very comprehensive presentation. I spent a lot of time reading through it. And it is a challenge. It is a challenge to find the funding to do this the way it should be done. And I think I want to reserve any opinion until we see Brent's initial presentation of the budget, whenever that comes, early December sometime, I believe, to see what our capacity to support something like this is.
Laura?
Well, I feel like I'm living in Groundhog Day here. We've been discussing this for years now. No one's ever questioned the need for rec or the value of it. it's always gotten down to the price. You know, and I hate to be the realist here, but we had a part-time initially that we put money into. We then moved her up to full-time. That cost us, the town, $36,000. She left and another person came in. I'm not sure what that program cost. The voters voted on a budget last year that did not include rec because of the difficulty we have had with a municipal employee running a rec program. They did put one together this year. However, I haven't heard the numbers, but my understanding is it ran with 28 kids. Again, it was my understanding that that we couldn't afford to do it unless it ran with 75 kids. I'm not sure what's happened here. I will say we have put a lot of energy this year into getting a downtown designation. We have a wonderful staff member, Adele, who's hired for economic. So we have folks in place who are much better positioned to work together. And, you know, with MAC being a not-for-profit, they're well positioned to set up, because they're not-for-profit, and to take donations and stuff that can be tax deductible. So, and giving, you know, and I will say the teen center, that was run by Lamoille Health Partners. If anybody's paying attention to the news, we all know what happened with that. So finance is a huge, huge concern. And I don't know exactly what the budget is. But, you know, I can tell you, I've spent the past month dealing with the feds and all the local government to get food stamps and SNAP to our local residents. And the people I'm talking to are planning to leave town because the taxes are so high. We have had 4 years of budgets at 14%. We have gone through $800,000 paying down those taxes. But we haven't really done much to bring the budget down. I'm terrified by what the budget's going to be. So I'm very clear, I cannot in good conscience go to our our taxpayers and add $100,000 line item for another union staff person in municipality. That is just a hard reality. But again, I don't think that's even the avenue we should go. I think working with MAC and working with our Adele and working with other partnerships is much more feasible, and building a community. We do need a committee to work, and there are lots of groups out there that are doing things currently. There's lots of options out there, but I think, you know, Adele's looking at, you know, the rail trail and looking at grants. So I think we are positioned well for the future. So I absolutely do not believe another union staff member at $100,000 is the answer.
Thank you, folks. So just a couple of thoughts. I already said, you know, it's very hard to disagree with anything that you've presented. It makes all the sense in the world. It's not just about summer rec either. I agree. It's about all ages. We're not just talking about kids. There's lots of I run into people all the time in town that are looking for recreation for themselves, and they're in my age class. They're not in high school or middle school. But we need to do something for those individuals as well, those young individuals. The real issue, of course, is, you know, finding the resources, the economic resources to support this. It's fundamentally important to us as a town. I think we look around, we see other towns. You've talked about some of the towns that are nearby that have rec programs. Been talking to people in Johnson recently. I've been talking to people in Stowe recently and trying to figure out what they're doing and what we can do, what we can copy from them. And I think there are things that we can copy from them. I think there are resources out there. I think, personally, I think it needs to be put in front of the voters this year. I think the voters need to decide. And if nothing else, maybe it needs to be put out there as a separate article. Maybe it needs to be put out there as a separate article so that the voters get a chance to put their vote behind this program. And I'm not sure what that article would say quite yet. I've talked minimally to town administration right now, but we'll be talking more about it. Laura, you're right. We need to see the budget. We need to see the whole budget. We're not going to see that for a couple of weeks yet, but recreation is important. It got beat up last year. It got really severely beat up last year, and I, for one, want to see what we can do to rectify this, to bring it back, because it is just so important to any community, not just our community, but it's important to any community. So I just throw that out there for something for the board to think about. Maybe we could put a separate article out there and let voters vote on it. Not just put it into the budget, but make it a black and white vote. Are we behind this or are we not behind this? It's money. And then I would also say, I agree with you. We need a rec committee to support this position. I think that's really important. When I look at other towns that are running successful rec programs, that's what they're doing. I went to the library. Maggie, you were there. And Judy was there. A couple of other individuals in the audience that were there 10 days ago. And we listened to Mike Johnson who worked in St. Johnsbury as a rec director. And he talked about how important a rec committee was. He also talked about how important volunteerism is. And you've alluded to it a bunch of times. It's not just about the town appropriating money. It's not just about having a rec committee, but it's about all of us pulling together. I mean, we've got some very successful groups in this town that run under the guise of recreation. Morrisville Youth Soccer. It's very, very successful. Downhill, we have a ski program that we run on Sunday afternoons. It's been run for a long time. And as far as I know, that's very successful still. There's adult groups in town. There's pickleballers that are very interested in and they're a very active group around the county. Morrisville baseball and softball. I'm not so familiar with the basketball program, but I'm sure that's doing fairly well. I know a lot of our kids in town are involved in Stowe Youth Hockey as well. So you've listed a whole bunch of organizations that could partner with this, but we do have some very successful groups right now that are doing well, and we can partner with them too. But I think we need to think about appropriating some money. Again, I don't know how much. I think we need to think, you're right, you're asked for a committee. We need a committee to support that position. And we need to figure out a way to get more people to volunteer their time to make this work, because ultimately that's what's going to make it work. So
We got a little part of that with the volunteering is creating a structure of trust to get, because that's the hard sell, I'm here and I'm not going to give up, but I also was here 10 years ago on the volunteer rec committee working for that. And so when people put in a bunch of time and care, and then the rug gets pulled out from under them with no explanation for no reason, and then it's we voted on the budget last year, and I feel like I've heard a lot from you guys that you're worried about the budget, it was so close last year, and no one last year when the budget was so close ever thought to ask why after. And I think that the assumption is that
everyone who votes no for the budget votes no because it's too high, and certainly that's out there. But like, I voted no for the budget last year because I was so bummed, you know? And I'm not the only one, like, at all. So like, there was never any follow-up after the budget last year. It was just like taken out. And then any advocacy that went in after was like, you know, successful to some extent, kind of, but then it's just gone. So all that work is gone. And what else do you have at that point but a yes or a no, you know? And so, like, how do we rebuild the trust, you know? By like proving to this town that we're taking people seriously. That's all we can do moving forward, you know?
And it would be naive of us to think that we know why everyone's voting no or why everyone's
Yeah.
voting yes. There's
Things we can do about that. I mean, after a budget is very close or doesn't pass, we absolutely can like create some form of community outreach to be like, talk to us. Why'd you vote no? I mean, fill out this Google form. Like, there are ways we can find out what people are thinking, and we should.
Yeah.
You know? And we need someone who is like doing that. You know?
any other thoughts from the board? Thoughts from the audience? We have a microphone up here. Once again, introduce yourself for those people online and for the recording.
Martin Green. We've got 4 options for a local options tax coming before the voters. And I think the revenue that could be generated from any of those could certainly be used to fund these kind of things. So I think that's one area, one avenue that would really help with this, that wouldn't even have to stretch the budget. So I think it's important that we really consider that to generate that revenue to be able to take care of this, because this is forward looking. If we look just simply narrowly at next week, next year, we miss the point. This is an investment in the future. So I just encourage us to vote for those local options taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. And Martin, there has been conversation about just that. Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Jerry Throne. Yeah, I've listened to everything here. I agree with what everybody said. I think that this is a quality of life issue. I think it's important to have recreation, and it's important to find ways to fund it and also to support. I think you need one person, whether they're full or part-time, to be the head person to make everything come together. And Maggie, when you talked about the different communities and how much they spend in Waterbury, it gave me an idea. So I looked up to see if they have a local options tax, and they do. They have a sales, meals, alcohol, and rooms tax. Maybe that's how they got their $1.2 million.
Thank you, Jared. Yeah, come on up. Thank you. And just remind people, please address the chair. Go ahead.
Carol Lauber, I'm the board chair for MAC, and I am speaking in that capacity and put together some information that I want to share about REC, because right now our community development economic person also has REC duties, and that's who we work the closest with, MAC, on projects that we're doing. So there's kind of that overlap, but also in this work with MAC, I am, as you're interacting with all these communities, you see the potentials of what other communities are doing and what it could be here in Morrisville. But, the state has a Department of Forest, Parks, and Recreation. Despite the comedy show Parks and Recreation, I just want to establish too that, recreation is a legitimate piece of our economy and our everyday life. But in 2017, Governor Scott identified outdoor rec as an important economic driver in Vermont, and establish the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economic Collaborative. Jackie Dagger, who is the program manager, shared, "We are working to keep the sector on its upward trajectory by aligning partners and fostering healthy and vibrant communities through outdoor recreation, using priority actions that support stewardship, wellness, and economic development." So with this MACAC, I do see the rec department as being an economic driver for our budget, what comes into that in a lot of different ways. And you can see from the state, they also very much talk about the economic impact of rec. They have had a community grant program. It has been suspended, but their website says, and this is a kind of a recent update, that that's just until the summer of 2026. And these are not insignificant amounts of money. These grants are from $10,000 to $100,000. Again, I see somebody in this position who can really network and look at these grants is also a revenue producer in that way to pay for their position. Right now, there's another one that Adele and the Conservation Commission is working on, and that's through their rec trail programs in the state. So that grant is, again, another way to bring money into the town, aside from taxation. And the Vermont Agency on Commerce and Community, which is where the downtown designation program lies under. I do want to say something about that. We have put in an enormous amount of work to get downtown designation, and then to not capitalize on what the potential is for this town would be really neglectful. And so we're gearing up to hire our person. We've got, fundraising to do to get that way, with that $25,000 from the state is going to be coming out in August of 2026. So that, as a total volunteer organization, there's only so much we're going to accomplish until we get that person in there. And so I'm seeing that quickly we can start creating synergy and start doing a lot bigger things with having this downtown designation. And, I'd really hate to see that we get dragged down by not having the right people in the town who can work with us and other partners to really create some vibrancy, as downtown designation likes to use that word a lot, and it is. There's just a U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis statistics, not to throw out too much, but just that National Outdoor Rec brings in $639 billion, and that was their latest numbers are 2023. In Vermont, it's 4.8 of our GDP, and it was a $2.1 billion added value here in the state. I feel like that, again, that's dollars that we're not capturing to their potential here in our town. The highest economic contributor was the snow, the outdoor winter rec. They also have national numbers to understand about trends. Is the retail sales in this whole sector are up 4.5%. Accommodation and food services that get affected by outdoor have been up 9%. All of these areas are like growing. Outdoor good manufacturing, tour operations, and employment in outdoor rec has been consistently growing over the last few years.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
You got to cut me. Am I too long?
Real soon.
Okay. Let me just say this. The University of Vermont, it has a program for parks and recreation and tourism. We have a lot of expertise right here. They're churning out, graduates every year. And obviously the state has a lot of departments and money that's focusing on that.
Thank you very much.
State
Appreciate it.
University also has an outdoor education program, so there might be some folks at Johnson and Linden as well.
Come on up. Laura, I see your hand. I'm just going to give the audience a chance to put their 2 cents worth in.
Let's have a question for Carol.
Yeah.
That was very insightful. A little bit from where I'm coming from. I have a degree in physical education and health. I have been a lifelong advocate of being healthy, and it's critically important to your overall health. If you take a look around what our country looks like today, we're being kept alive, we're being treated for this, that, and the other thing with pills. We are not a healthy country by any stretch of the imagination. And things like this, working with youth to give them the understanding and the importance in their growing years, in many instances, this will stay with them their entire lives. They will be healthy, productive adults. And I think it's critically important that we understand that. I would agree with Don that this should be a separate vote. It's going to run into problems with the budget. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I personally, and I know numerous people in town who would volunteer. I would love to take a group of kids out once a week on the rail trail for a hike up Mansfield, a swim up in Lake Elmore.
Connecting our seniors to our kids.
Right.
Amazing.
So, and I know other people would do this. I have friends who would do this. And so why can't we at least start with a strong volunteer organization made up of community citizens and try and get this thing going before the vote, now?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience? Yeah, come on up. Laura, like I said, I see your hand. I'll recognize you in a second.
I'm Kent Hedberg, Morristown resident. I kind of just echo what everyone else says. This is something that we need, and the town just needs to start not only investing in infrastructure, but its people. And I think that's a very important thing that needs to start happening too. That's all.
Thank you, Ken. Go ahead.
Sarah Haskins, I'm speaking today as a community member. It's very rare that I come up here and speak. As a community member, I try to remain neutral, but I'm really passionate about this. It's very important for my family. When my husband and I moved back as a young family 20 years ago to Vermont, and we're looking where to move, we picked Morristown. And a big part of it was because of the recreational opportunities that we saw, strong youth programs, strong Boy Scout, Cub Scout programs, strong summer rec, the connections to the 2 ski resorts, hiking, this is where we picked to be because of recreation. I served with Maggie and various other community members for a number of years on the Park and Recreation Committee. I think we had a really great momentum. We were getting a lot of things done for very little money. We were getting a lot of grant money to do small little projects, but some of those small things are big things for the community building. And we were very proud to be able to get in the budget a part-time rec coordinator. I agree with the comments. We probably shouldn't have disbanded. I think we had the idea that once we had a staff member that the volunteers in our committee wasn't needed. Looking back, I think we should have stayed. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents that I support Maggie's presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else in the audience?
My name is Tom Plutia. Maggie, I've been against adding money to the library. We got the finest library, I believe, in the state. The nicest, the most courteous, most knowledgeable people in the world work in that library. And I still don't believe, as a town, we can afford the monies that they really need, especially with their $1 million endowment, but whatever. Unfortunately, I feel the same way about this. I agree with you 100% with everything you said. The problem is the budget for this town. The last 3 years, our budget has gone up 37.5%. And my understanding, what people have said, right now we're at a $500,000 deficit. You tell me if I'm wrong about what people's told me. That's what we're facing. And how we can get $100,000 for somebody in there and have a budget pass, I don't know. Maybe put it as a subject item is the way to go. I'm sorry that we're at this situation this town is, but that's the facts.
Thank you, Tom.
I know.
Thank you.
Figures.
Folks, Tom, I don't want to have a back and forth in the audience, please. I know, and she probably shouldn't have, but
They're human nice. Yes, it's $100,000.
yeah, thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Laura,
First of all, I'd love to hear, Carol is a strategic partner of ours, so I would like to hear what else she has to say. And I know we're trying to control the time of the meetings, but she is a strategic partner with us. And she's got valuable information. I would like to ask Carol specifically, I think one thing, and I haven't talked to Adele about this, but if we had a web page somewhere, whether it's on the town or if it's on MAC, that list all the recreation, I don't even know what they all are, nor do I know how to get in touch with them. So I think that would be an incredible start, and also a way of kind of unifying the town so that everybody knows. So Carol, has there been a talk about a rec page anywhere to tie in all these groups that are going on? Is Carol out there?
Carol, would you like to come back up to the microphone? I did eventually cut you off. I know I let you go way over the 2 minutes, but
Thank you. Laura, I am not sure if you're talking about a town webpage.
Well, I'm not sure either. I'm hoping that you've talked to Adele, but and I'm not sure where it's appropriate. I think we need it. Is it more appropriate because MAC handles more community, or should we do it on the town? What are your thoughts about that? Because I'm hearing about all these groups. I had no idea we have all these groups, and there's no central location to find them. So to me, that just seems like a really good start for it. Sarah's waving. Maybe she knows.
Yeah.
She does know.
Okay.
Where do I look, Sarah?
Carol.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, why don't you answer that, and then Carol, come back up to the microphone.
Sarah Haskins, I am now speaking as town clerk. Laura, the town does have a website. It's on our recreation software system. When we had the Parks and Rec committee, it was information that we were gathering at the time, and it was on our old website. When I find the time, I go in and I am the one that has been updating it and adding information on the town website, but it's been there for 4 or 5 years, maybe.
So I am looking at it right now, and I've looked before. But just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts? Is it better on Max or is it better on us? Where should it be? Because again, I'm looking at it, it's got Green Up Day and Halloween. And I mean Halloween on the 26th. And I know you said you haven't updated it.
You have to click over to like the community program, and maybe what I'm hearing from you is we need a better tab or link to get people there. I'm not an expert. I think you need to talk to somebody that does social media or markets town would know better. The feedback that I received at the town a number of years ago was that when people were looking to move to a community, they were going to the town website and looking and gathering the information there first. I don't think that they would know that MAC exists. Sorry, Carol, I really hate to say that. And we actually, the parks, and these are these small little things. So part of the reason, I mean, Judy was very, very instrumental in getting the new website, but Parks and Recs was working on that. And community members had come to the town and had come to Parks and Rec, guessing maybe 2019-ish, and saying the website is not attractive. There's not information. We need to sell our town so that people, when they're looking, they want to come to us versus going to neighboring towns. You need better photos. You need better information. You need more connections to the community. And Morristown Parks and Rec launched a program, a competition, a photography competition where community members could submit photos of recreation in the community that the town could use to update the website, and local businesses donated some prizes. Totally free. I mean, some of my time and Trisha's time, probably salaries that did it here, but Parks and Rec actually did most of it as a committee.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Again, I'm just looking at it. I do websites, and, you know, maybe this is a conversation we should have. And because we can direct people to MAC so that we're not duplicating efforts. And there are easy ways to do it that aren't labor intensive. I'm happy to talk to Carol and to Adele and to anybody about this. Because I think that's a real basic step that we could do right now at no cost to anybody. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Laura.
Sarah.
Carol.
Carol Lauber, board chair for MAC. And yeah, Laura, that sounds great. And Adele, you and we can talk about that and see where we can kind of enhance all that. I think really the last point that I wanted to make was that there's lots of other type of monies out there that fall under a recreation category that if you had someone, and this came from the University of Vermont in one of their studies, just looking at equine events, not that I'm proposing that, I'm just saying, like, if you open your mind to the possibilities and look, I think there's a lot of opportunities that someone who's tasked with that can do to where that position really is not such a drag, or looking at it that way on the budget. But just in the state of Vermont, UVM Center for Rural Studies was the one who actually did just equine events generated over $21 million in the state in local economy activity. And if you look at just the tourism, the lodging, food, drink, air attractions, retail, transportation, that was $11 million. So there's just a lot of opportunity is what I see with what a rec person in our town could bring into our town as far as events, enhancing events that the town, Adele and Mac ourselves are already doing, to just pull in a run with it. I mean, the 5K runs make money, it's just like little things like that. Again, it's just that capacity to do the work, to get it done. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Kathy's iPad. And I'll just say, we've been at this for about an hour and a quarter, so I'm probably going to move on to the next part of the agenda, but go ahead, Kathy. I assume that's Kathy Chafee.
Yeah, no, you can skip me.
Did you
Did
say
you
we
hear me?
can skip you?
I said you can skip me.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Nancy?
Yes, Nancy Donovan, Morristown. The thing I'm concerned about is I understand that we have a $500,000 deficit from last year. And I think we all would love to have recreation and all the perks that every other town has. But to be honest, Waterbury, their median income is $106,000. And in us, we're 64,000. So I think what we're going to have to do to not raise taxes is to have more people come forward as volunteers to volunteer their time working with kids. And I think Bob's offer of willing to work with people, but my concern is with town, isn't that a liability for town to be running programs? Have we had any liability issues? Would be my first question. And my second question is, do we have a deficit of 500,000 right now? And if we are putting it on the ballot, I think it behooves to let people know what it's going to cost them in taxes. And how much is our taxes going up because we have a deficit from last year? Thank you.
Those are good questions, Kathy. And the budget questions, we'll wait until the budget's presented to answer those, but thank you. Okay, I'm going to say, yeah, we've been at this for an hour and 25 minutes. Maggie, thank you so much for coming in and getting our attention focused on this. And okay, so I'm going to move on. Number 2, Best Street, private sewer line. And I believe Scott is going to speak to this.
Scott Johnstone, Village Manager in Morrisville. Brent asked me to come and talk about some recent fun we've been having with old infrastructure. It's kind of the riddle of old infrastructure. I'm not quite sure what he was hoping I'd do. So, but this goes back to when the village was putting in a new water line, the town paved Best Street. And in the process of that, it became clear that there were some pretty clear.
Do you have yours set on a timer?
Pretty clear springs and stormwater going on LaPorte Road as well. And so the town agreed to, like, since that's a town function, to while all the equipment was there, to dig that up and try to get that channeled correctly. And so what happened in the process of all that is the contractor grabbed on to an old water shutoff that wasn't on any maps. There were actually 2 water shutoffs for one house. Imagine that. So then the town did the right thing. They went a little bit downstream. They dug a sump to kind of control the leaking water while we got it fixed. And that all happened and we thought we were all done. And so then along the way, you know, that the house on the corner of Best and LaPorte, which actually has a Best Street address, was vacant and was getting ready to be sold. And so people were wondering, asked for inspections. It was everything copacetic. And we come to find out that we can't figure out where the sewer's going out of that property. And so we put some dye down. It didn't show up in any of the pipes, you know, on Best Street or LaPorte. Our maps all show that it went out to LaPorte across their property in that direction. So the sewer laterals don't always run in the direction of the street address. They run in the downhill, right? So made sense. But there's actually 2 sewer lines on LaPorte Street. There's an old one and a new one. So which one did it go to? Well, what we found out along the way is that in the process of digging that sump, that the lateral had been dug through and nobody knew it. Wasn't marked in dig safe because we weren't supposed to be digging there. So no one was at fault. And at the end of the day, we got it all figured out. The connection actually was to the new pipe on LaPorte, like our plan said. But you just never know with these things, right? So it was a good collaboration between us and the town, and ultimately this old infrastructure riddle got solved, and you know that property can be sold if it hasn't been already, and so but just a good collaboration. There's no bills coming to anybody because it didn't get marked in dig safe, so nobody's at fault. So I don't know what else, if anything, Brent was hoping I'd say. So that's what he asked me to come and share with you, I think. So I don't know if there's any questions or if anything Brent wants to add to that.
Do you have an amount that costs the village?
I didn't bring it. I don't know, to be honest with you, Brent.
Okay.
Yeah,
But that is the bottom line. There's not a bill coming to the
there's
town.
no bill coming to the town.
Yeah.
The town couldn't have known. Your contractor couldn't have known. The real issue was that nobody knew about that second water shutoff, and so we didn't mark that. That's actually what created the problem, because how could anybody have known that was on no map? We have pretty doggone good records. I mean, we've got hand-driven hand-drawn field books with ties to almost everything. And that one extra water shut off just didn't exist and created all this mess. So
Okay. Well, thank
what
you,
happens
Scott.
with old infrastructure.
Okay. Any
Good to see
questions?
y'all. I'm glad people are liking the lights. Just for the record, that was a town request for a grant from Amy Wade Fund. Village trustees approved that, and we're putting them up, and we're glad to see some new lights out on the street.
They're very good.
Thank you very much, Scott. Any questions for Scott from the board? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, update. We have some dog park rules in our packet. And they, for me anyways, beg what I thought was the obvious question: what's changed? Why are we looking at this policy? And we didn't have the old rules when we first looked at this over the weekend, but we do now. And it's pretty obvious that we needed a substantial update to this to these rules. It is worth saying, worth mentioning that there has been an issue in that some people have been bringing multiple dogs to the dog park, commercial businesses, dog sitting businesses, and so that's why you do see in there a rather black and white statement banning any kind of commercial activities in our dog park. But I would open it to any comments that anybody has regarding those. I don't have anything more to add than that.
I guess I've got a question, Don. I don't even know who to direct it to. When I look at the dog requirements in the proposed, that all looks like it makes a lot of sense. Who enforces that?
I guess would it be our animal?
So,
Officer?
you were briefed a while ago on how busy our animal control officer is. He works part-time as a police officer. So, this came about because I received several complaints this summer. And we wanted to address those concerns. But like everything from zoning to number of unregistered vehicles in this town, who enforces it is difficult. So this is an effort to try to remind people of being community oriented when they use the dog park. It's mostly to address that. Had 3 complaints about incidents where there are 6+ dogs with one individual utilizing the dog park, and there was concern about safety as well as the ability of all residents to be able to utilize it. But your question is a good one that we face with multiple ordinances, and
It seems like the only way to start it is if a rule violation is called in to either the town or the animal control officer. That starts a quote investigation, or I guess that's the right word, is an investigation. But unless somebody who called it in knows who will take the commercial dog handler that comes with 8 dogs, you got to know who that person is, because by the time we get the animal control officer, they're probably gone. And it just, I mean, it's good policy, but there's got to be a process of actualizing the policy, or else it becomes a piece of paper. And that's not what I want. Certainly, I think the things that are listed here are all good things.
yeah, I mean, I want to give Judy credit. She's the one that updated this in conjunction with Bruce Emerson, our dog control officer.
Yeah.
And I reviewed it, had a couple of comments, but they're minimal. And what Bruce and Judy tried to do was make this something that didn't create significant requirements for enforcement, just practical solutions for all of our residents to be able to utilize the dog park. And like any complaint we receive on a daily basis, we try to have the appropriate staff handle it in as efficient way possible. But as I've already described to the select board, our animal control officer is already very, very busy.
Yeah.
And yeah, he works part-time.
Thank you, Brent. I appreciate the clarification.
Of course, the rules as they've written do delineate what our expectations are. And so in those situations where you could identify somebody going in there with 6 or 8 dogs, there is a path to go.
Hopefully, yes.
Have to go
There's a
down.
path for them to go, to complain and hopefully get results. Yeah.
Right. As opposed to not having it in there.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would entertain a motion. I see 2 hands up there, but just to get a motion out there, I think it's coming.
I've got a question. Will these rules be posted at the dog park so everyone would know, or maybe a Reader's Digest version of them?
We'll have it up on the website, and I'm gonna ask Highway to somehow post it at the dog park.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question, because then at least someone who's concerned might say,
Yes.
do you know this is the rule?
Right.
And if it is approved, we'll start dispersing it on Facebook as well, but yeah.
Do I have a motion or do we want to respond to those hands?
Make sure Laura should have a chance.
Laura, go ahead.
Well, Richard, it's mentioned what I was gonna say is that we need to have signage at the dog park so everybody knows. And in an effort to work with our people, dog sitting and animal sitting is a huge revenue source for people. So, what are our options in directing people to somewhere where they can take the dogs? I know I lived in New Jersey. We had a mountaintop that's where everybody went to because it was big and public. So, you know, I want to be proactive and positive in our, you know, and prevent us from just saying no, no, no. So I would like to have a way to offer options. I don't know, you know, is there a place that we can direct them? And I know we don't have it offhand, but I would like to see us work with these folks because it's a huge revenue source for people. It's important.
And these are dogs that would be off leash. They're going to the dog park to take them off leash. In the rest of the village, they need to be on a leash. So I guess they would have to go outside the town. But even then, you know, they might have to go on to, not sure. It's a good question, Laura. Would they have to go onto private property that they are invited to go onto?
I have a bit of experience in this area, and typically the dog walker would find private property and either seek that owner's permission and make some type of arrangement where they can then use that private property to have their dogs off leash. That's, in my experience, has been how that's been handled.
Kathy,
What are the new rules? I haven't seen them. Are they too long to read?
I could read them. Would the board like me to read them?
No, we've done.
So the rules go, there's several categories, 6 different categories. First is general park usage. The park is open from sunrise to sunset, weather permitting. Use of the park is at your own risk. Owners are responsible for any injury or damage caused by their dogs to people, other dogs, or property. Report any rule violations, aggressive behavior, or maintenance issues to the town of Morristown at there's a telephone number and animal control officer and a telephone number for that individual as well. Dog requirements. All dogs must be currently licensed, vaccinated, including rabies as required by Vermont law, and always wearing their license tags on a collar or harness. Dogs over 6 months must be spayed or neutered. Sick, contagious, or dogs with a history of biting or violence are prohibited. Dogs must be up to date on flea, tick, and heartworm prevention. No animals other than dogs are allowed in the park. Owner responsibilities. Limit of 3 dogs per adult handler. Owners must maintain constant supervision and control over their dogs. Do not leave dogs unattended. Clean up after your dog immediately using provided bags or on your own. Dispose of waste in designated trash receptacles, not compost bins. Remove your dog immediately if it shows signs of aggression, excessive roughness, or intimidation toward other dogs or people. Children under 12 must be closely supervised by an adult and are not recommended in the park. No small children are allowed if dogs are rambunctious. Leash and entry/exit protocols. Keep dogs on a leash when entering or exiting the park and outside the off-leash area. Have one leash per dog available at all times. Use the double gate system. Secure gates behind you to prevent escapes. Remove leashes, harnesses, and prohibited collars. For example, prong, choke, shock, or spiked collars once inside the off-leash area. Prohibited items and activities. No food, treats, bones, or chew toys allowed with multiple dogs in the park to prevent resource guarding or allergies. Use your best judgment. No glass containers, smoking, alcohol, bikes, or skateboards. The dog park is for personal recreation use only. Commercial use of the dog park is prohibited unless prior written authorization is obtained from the town of Morristown. And finally, additional recommendations. If possible, separate small and large dogs to enforce safety. Bring your own water, bowl, and first aid supplies. Monitor your dog for signs of fatigue or stress and leave before issues arise. And encourage community involvement such as volunteer maintenance or partnerships with local animal shelters for events. That's the entire set of rules, Kathy.
Okay, first of all, I don't know, I guess we dropped the ball when that passed through, but the park is way too small. There's no place to park. If somebody wants to go there during the day, say at 2 o'clock when the kids are 2:45, whatever time they get out of school, and they're at the dog park, they're parking on both sides of the road. The only suggestion I would have is maybe make it a little bigger and put some more fence down and V it out so there's more space. You do have some empty space there. And all your rules are just, you're asking neighbors to tally on each other because there's no way to police that. Which is kind of discouraging that you spent that much time on writing all those rules out and there's no one to police it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Yeah. Okay. I would, come on up.
Just to, at one time,
Name?
the inner gate, my name is Kent Hedberg, a resident. It's been a few months since I've been to the dog park, but at one time the inner gate wasn't opening and closing properly. The latch was getting stuck. I don't know if that's been fixed or not. Also, is there a fine associated with this ordinance, or is it just hey, don't do that again?
This is not an ordinance. These are just rules, number one.
I would say if there is a fine associated, we should put that in the rules to kind of discourage it. But,
yeah. Okay, thanks, Ken.
Yeah, we purposely didn't make this ordinance, and again, we try to be responsive to residents, so we responded with what we thought was a practical solution. If somebody does report something to the town office, we would reach out to Bruce, and Bruce would investigate. And before I started here, one of the first matters I was involved in was a dog bite issue. So we do have processes for more significant matters, but this is a beginning so that people at least know what expectations are set, and we can try to work with each other to help enforce the practical measures.
I would agree. It's an attempt to clearly delineate what the expectations are. Yeah. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the updated dog park rules as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Richard and a second by George. Any further discussion? Yeah, come on.
Melissa LeBlanc, resident of the village. If Bruce Emerson is called because of a violation of something in this policy, Is he paid by the hour or is he salaried?
Right?
So I just want to point out, with a budget that is astronomical and nobody having any money, is it a great idea to pay someone hourly to investigate if someone's dog has heartworm medication, even though there's no law that says a dog has to have heartworm medication? It's just a thought. Like, so everything in here that, like Kathy was saying, you could call and tattle on your neighbor. Like, I don't think Jane gives her dog heartworm medication. He was in the park. Then we call Bruce and we pay him however much an hour, and he has to leave his family and his life to go investigate everything in that's listed as a rule in an unenforceable policy. So it's just a thought.
Thank you, Melissa. Again, just a reminder of enforcement. Yeah. Any other comments? Okay. So we have a motion to accept the dog park rules as presented. So all those in favor, George?
Aye.
Richard? Leah?
Aye.
Laura?
Nay.
That was a nay, right?
Yep.
Okay. And the chair votes yay, so that would be 4-1. Okay, thank you. Let's see. So up next is a summary of the VLCT short-term rental policy retreat. I know, Leah, you attended the retreat, and it says here on the agenda that Laura is going to be part of this presentation. Laura, would you like to start this? We're talking short-term rentals. It is something that came up as part of the local options tax conversation. When we were first started talking about local option taxes, most recently, a good month or so ago, we agreed to talk about each one of them separately. We talked about the rooms tax, the rooms local option tax 2 weeks ago, and we agreed that it would be wise to talk about short-term rentals there shortly thereafterwards. We also knew that there was a Vermont League of Cities and Towns retreat November 8th last weekend, and we had at least one select board member that was going, so it seemed like a wise time to talk about the short-term rental policy. So Laura, do you have anything that you want to start with?
No, I apologize. I couldn't make it down. I got really sick. But I've done a lot of research, but I think we need to hear from Leah first. And then I will add into what she has to say.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Leah.
So in the select board packet, I took pretty extensive notes and shared them. They started, of course, with statewide tourism stats. A couple of interesting things. Visitors are split 50-50 between day visitors and overnight visitors. Lodging is the largest share of the total economic impact of tourism. Lodging is a $4.2 billion contribution, and 10% of the state employees are in tourism. Lamoille is top for tourism employment and the top for short-term rentals, but that's driven primarily by Stowe. 18% of tourists don't spend the night, or they stay with friends and family. And of those using paid accommodations, about 50% stay in hotels, about 25% in short-term rentals, and 25% in resorts or camping or other ways. The state says that tourists spend $1,700 per trip, and $400 of that is spent in restaurants. And they also really talked about the rail trail as a key opportunity to distribute economic impact throughout the state of Vermont, throughout small towns, and really encourage towns to embrace it and to take advantage of it. Speaking directly to short-term rentals, towns have three options: ordinance, i.e. regulate, or a registry of sorts, zoning, and then a combination of both. Key point is a town cannot run a registry or a licensing program as a revenue stream. The Vermont Supreme Court has allowed licensing fees and enforcement fees reasonably related to the cost of running the program, but it cannot be run as a revenue generating program. And then in discussing an annual registry, it's helpful for tracking and for public safety contacts. Because, you know, once you establish a STR, it's subject to state laws and state rules and codes, including public safety, water, wastewater, food and beverage services, taxes, etc. Given that's what our conversation was, that pretty much was like, okay. We do have an ordinance, an existing ordinance, which seems to address the concerns. 3 different towns presented, and it was primarily, they created a registry primarily for public safety reasons. And they went into details about what worked and what didn't work, but a lot of that did not apply to us because of what we already had on the books. One other interesting thing of note was Julie Marks, who's the executive director of the Vermont Short-Term Rental Alliance, basically endorsed having a local option tax on rooms. Her clients prefer that over a registry. So she basically endorsed an LOT. There is community-specific data about short-term rentals on the website housingdata.org. It is run by, I think, the statewide housing agency. And you can look up, Morristown is number 17 out of the top 20 towns with short-term rentals. And those 20 towns account for more than 50% of the listings. Again, number 1 is Stowe. And the towns that are, you know, in a resort town have the highest number of short-term rentals. In September of this year, Morristown had 138 active short-term rentals. And I looked at the data, it went as high as 152 units last winter, which is about 5% of our housing stock. And the median revenue per home for short-term rental ranged from $463 in April of 2025 to about $4,300 in last October of 2024. So it really varies. There's more listings in the fall, but the revenue tends to be more in the winter.
Great, thank you, Leah. My takeaway from that is this all began, the whole local options tax conversation and STRs being kind of pulled into it was all around revenue, alternative revenue sources, which the voters and taxpayers of Morristown have asked this board multiple times to look into. And we've talked about local option taxes. We're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about STRs and we're talking about a registry. And unfortunately, the registry doesn't provide us a revenue stream.
Nope.
So it cannot be used for that. So under that same guise of LOTs, this is an odd duck. The registry does offer us some other opportunities. Public safety was what you had mentioned.
Safety for the most part, correct. And the biggest problem, though, that all 3 towns said was enforcement was difficult, and you needed some way to pay for an administrator to kind of follow up. And all 3 towns are, well, 2 towns are struggling with that. 1 town basically increased their registry fee based on number of bedrooms.
And those 3 towns were Londonderry, Ludlow, and Waterbury?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for all these notes. Thank you for attending. It was I know you were there for a long day. It was
interesting.
It was advertised as an 8-hour day. So
It was a long day.
yeah. So thank you. Other thoughts from the board? Comments?
Other than thank, I appreciate it when we got this, Leah. It was very informative for me, and clearly, you put a lot of time into both going in, reporting out. That's appreciated.
Thanks.
Don, can I comment now?
Yes, definitely, Laura.
Thank you, Leah, for all that information. I did call Chief Leno to ask him if we had any kind of safety issues. And I'm happy to report that he says that we are not having any significant issues with short-term rentals, which is great. So the registry does seem to be not an option for us. I am curious, Christy Snip mentioned that she paid a permit fee. I don't know about a permit fee for short-term rentals. I'm curious what that is, and what kind of revenue that's generating. And that's something that Tyler will have to help us with. I'm not familiar with that, but I will say, the short-term rentals, Todd Thomas did a great job. We worked on it for 5 years, getting a policy in place that's been very effective. And the short-term rentals we have are really important for folks because it's been clear that we can't support a hotel other than Sunset, which is, really caters to snowmobiles. So it serves as a really important feature for us to have lodging. It also helps people pay taxes, so which is really important, and it does bring people to town. So I just want to thank all the people that are hosting Airbnbs. I much appreciate their work. It's a lot of work for cleaning. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Laura. Anybody else on the board? Comments? This is really just an FYI tonight. So just to get the board up to speed on where we stand with this. I see one hand on Zoom. I believe that's Tyler Maisha.
Yeah, I can just very briefly just speak to like the permitting fees right now. So essentially the fee you'd be talking about for a short-term rental would be like building one, which would be the same as, constructing any structure in town. Like you get a fee for that, or let's say if you converted existing square footage over to an Airbnb or to a dwelling unit and convert it to that, like that change of use would generate a fee, but it's not like a short-term rental use fee explicitly. It'd be the same thing. It's like it's kind of weird. So what it is essentially, let's say if somebody wants to build an ADU that they rent out short-term, right? There's not a fee for it because it's going to be a short-term rental. There's a fee for it because it's an ADU. Does that make sense? And then how they choose to rent that out would have to comply with the short-term rental ordinances that we have.
Thank you. That explains a lot.
Any questions for Tyler? Okay, thank you for that, Tyler. Thanks for the clarification. Okay, if there's no other comments, I'm going to move on to the next item. Okay, number 5, to approve the RFP for architectural services with Scott and Partners. Brent, do you want to speak to this?
Sure. We have a roof that's been leaking for quite a while. Structure. We brought in an architect that responded to a request, and the architect needs CAD drawings completed. And so we put on an RFP for additional architectural services. I misspoke. We went out to an engineer about weight for the roof that needs to be replaced. And with insulation requirements, we're wondering if we can't use roof insulation. The engineer needed CAD drawings, so we went out for an RFP for CAD drawings and other services. So this was initiated because of a regularly leaking roof. Donnie Blake has been wonderful, sort of monitoring it. These services that are contained in here, we searched for any sort of drawings, renderings. We reached out to Paul to see if he might have been involved. Someone said that he might have been involved with drawing up some plans before this building was sold to the town, but leased to us. He doesn't have any. So the services here for CAD services, not only for the roof, but the front exterior of the building is leaking, and this will be helpful for identifying solutions for that. If Sarah was here, she could talk about Department of Homeland Security has done a security assessment on the town, specific to the town clerk's office, really, and found concerns. So all of this, it's in this RFP, the services provided will assist in any sort of additional repairs that might be needed in the future, as well as the vast space that we have there, and assessing whether or not it can be utilized, because as you all know, there's, let's say 80% of the building upstairs is not being utilized. So this will provide us with the necessary CAD drawings, renderings, etc., that we can move forward with plans in the future as need be.
And the total ask is, I know it's in here, just
It's on page 21 of the packets, page 5 of the proposal. Total ask is 38,500.
and the money would be coming from
The buildings fund.
Okay. And clearly, like the members of the board have seen the roof and we are seeing what's going on, and yeah, the roof needs to be repaired. There's no doubt about that.
The roof needs to be repaired as soon as possible. It's a question of what kind of roof do we put up there, is how it's structured. Does it allow for a roof that would provide insulation factor, or if we need to build in insulation in that space. So it also, this will provide a feasibility study, including all the options for roof. It will also provide review of the existing roof, recommendations for repair, and then develop renderings and other materials for presentation to the public.
And as you mentioned security. I know that's something that's been talked about in this building for a couple of years now. It would provide recommendations for security as well.
No, that would be, we'd have to go to a security firm, but
Okay.
the security firm could look at the CAD drawings, they could look at the drawings to, you know, to make recommendations based on space. The back stairs, you know, there's, when I came on board, there was actually in union meetings, multiple things about the building that were expressed as concerns through the union. So this will help move things forward as needed.
It'll help move us in that direction of having that conversation about security. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Questions? Discussion? Yeah, go ahead, George.
So Brent, just clarification for me, I'm back on page 5 of their presentation. In clarifications, the second bullet says drawings and specifications for the re-roofing component assume that the work will be bid. So am I properly interpreting that as they're going to give us final documents to add to the RFP and we'll go from there?
Correct.
Okay. What about any other work that they're talking about? We talk about the front wall leaking and whatnot. Will those documents be bid ready if and when we decide to go that way? Well, I find it interesting they just identified the re-roofing as quote bid ready, and that might not be the right word, but
yeah, the reason for that is the engineer and Donnie Blake were both very clear that unless we had CAD drawings with different options from an architect, different roofers could come in with different plans.
Yeah.
And while one might seem more economical, it could actually not be cost effective and the most beneficial method. And the fact that we don't even know what the weight bearing capacity of the roof is a significant risk. So that's why that's put in the clarifications.
Okay.
As we move forward with potential other projects, we can use this information to build out an RFP for those other projects to make it as concise as possible. So there's not any sort of differences in and solutions that might cause us to not understand what the impacts or shortcomings of different ideas are.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the request for proposals RFP for architectural services of Scott and Partners and authorize Brent Raymond to sign an agreement for services.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Richard and a second by George. Any more discussion?
Jerry Throne. If I understood correctly, you need to find out whether the roof can carry, what kind of load the roof can carry. Or was it the ceiling here, which is the floor of the second story? I'm not sure. I'm not clear. If I get some clarification on that. Also, included or not included in the 38,500 is an additional 5 to 7,500 for structural engineering. And is that correct? And is that to do the analysis of either the roof or the floor of the second story?
Good question. Brent, do you
What
have
are
any?
you referencing for the second part, guy?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, fourth bullet in clarifications. You mentioned that we need to know what the load-bearing capacity of the roof is.
Yeah.
And I'm questioning first, do you mean the roof or do you mean the floor, which is the ceiling above this room?
Yeah, actually, if you were to go up there, there's a ceiling, and then about 3 feet above the second floor, there is a flooring with insulation and multiple HVAC pipes. That's about 3 feet higher than the second floor. So if this is to do weight bearing for the roof, what they did was they clarified in the RFP that there might need to be additional work done. They're looking at whether the exterior walls are weight bearing. The sides are. There's a question about this front facade. It looks like there was a I don't know how to describe it, but brick placed in front of brick, but that's leaking into the building right now. So they wanted to make clarification that if there's further work that needs to be done specific to if the roof or attic, if review of the attic or roof suggests an analysis of structural capacity needs to be performed, we will need to do potentially additional more work. And they won't know that until the CAD is completed by the architect.
Okay, it's not clear to me, but okay, yeah, if it's clear to you, then that's.
More importantly, it's even more clear to Donnie Blake, who I conferred with, because I'm not an engineer or an architect, so.
But we don't know if he's going to be doing the work, do we?
No, Chris Temple is the one that provided this proposal. And this is the only proposal we received out of our RFP. So I asked Donnie Blake to look at this closely so that he could give me any input of any concerns he had with it. So what I'm telling you is like, this is good for the engineer that we've hired. This is also good for Donnie, who, it's not me weighing in on this fully because I'm not an expert, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not an architect, so I wouldn't be able to fully make a recommendation to the select board without expert opinion.
Okay, so I guess what the bottom line is, it could be 38,500 plus 7,500.
Correct.
Okay, so that's
What
it could be.
Today is 38,500. We
Okay.
would go back to the select board if there was anything more that needed to be.
Okay. Oh, and by the way, the double brick, it's called a double withe wall. standard for brick, but 2 layers.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, other discussion? Yeah, come on up.
Chris LeBlanc, Morrisville resident. Just want a couple things about this. I've worked with Donnie Blake extensively and with Chris Temple on 2 separate roof engineering projects, both very capable, credible people. So it's great that they're on this. Does the 38,500 include complete CAD drawings for the entire building, or is it just roof and front and exterior?
Entire building.
Entire building. Okay. And a third of this is for meetings with staff to establish a detailed program to develop expansion options. What expansion is it? Are we looking at additions to the building, or?
Yeah, staff is more select board and the public, honestly, but we receive feedback regularly about lack of ADA compliance, lack of meeting space, especially around town meeting. And Sarah could speak to this more than me as far as around town meeting and public voting. But there's several things. There's options that we could have a much larger meeting room upstairs if we're able to put in the space, and we need the CAD drawings to be able to even know whether or not that's an option. There's nothing planned, but that's built into the time for the architect to be able to address the select board and the public if we're to move forward with that.
That was it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, are we ready to vote on the motion? Okay, so we have a motion before us to approve the RFP for architectural services with Scott and Partners. All those in favor, George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Leo?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
And that would be unanimous. Okay, thank you. Number 6, request for reconsideration of conditions for the right-of-way access permit for 265 Cottage Street. This is Chris and Melissa, and we're going to bring that microphone over.
Don? I am going to abstain.
Okay, thank you for letting us know that.
Give to prior to my appointment.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, Brett.
And do you want me to leave the room for this? I'm happy to.
I don't believe you need to. There is a decision that's been made. It's been made public. There's no reason to that I am familiar with. So go ahead, Chris and Melissa.
So you should have our requests.
Yes.
In front of you with the packet. So again, thank you for having us through all the hearings. Thank you for approving our appeal for the right-of-way decision. And thank you for taking the time to hear us today. So after reviewing the decision from the select board for our right-of-way permit and reviewing the conditions that are being placed on us through this permit, there were 2 conditions that didn't agree with what we had planned, what had been talked about, or that didn't work technically. So the first one is the alignment of the sewer line, which is condition 6 in your decision. And the current language in your condition says the sewer force main shall run along the easterly side of Cottage Street right of way, maintaining said plus or minus 10-foot separation distance from the traveled way and not diagonally as proposed until it reaches a point opposite Morrisville Water and Light Sewer Manhole number 9. At that point, the line shall then turn westerly at a roughly 90-degree angle and cross the traveled way for Cottage Street perpendicularly to reach said manhole. So our issue with this is that we're required to install this with directional boring, which is condition 7. And a directional bore can't make a 90-degree turn. It's a steel drill that runs horizontally through the ground. It can make turns, but they are sweeping wide angle turns. I've confirmed this with the boring company, and Mumley agrees. Mumley Engineering, who you know is our engineer for this project. So running down the easterly side of the street and making anything close to a 90-degree turn is not technically feasible. And landing or crossing Cottage Street perpendicularly is not technically feasible with a directional drill. So our proposed alternative language, excuse me, the sewer force main shall run along the easterly side of Cottage Street right away, maintaining a 10 plus or minus 10-foot separation from the traveled way until a point at which it will start a sweeping turn towards the west, ending at Morse Water Light manhole number 9 in a manner consistent with the operating limitations of the directional boring equipment. And again, this doesn't the condition for the tracer line and the as-built drawings from the engineers still apply, so it'll be very easy to know where this line is and find it in the future. Condition number 10, this is a building restriction. The current language says appellants shall restrict the use of sewer lines so it serves only one 3-bedroom dwelling on their proposed new lot at 265 Cottage Street. And they shall implement a deed restriction or other similar covenants prohibiting further subdivision of the lot served by this private sewer line. Subject to condition 12 below, the private sewer line connection shall be allowed in perpetuity. And then A of that, subsection A of that, construction of boring for the sewer line shall not commence until the appellant have entered into a license agreement with the town and have demonstrated that the deed restrictions or covenant have been recorded. So our issue with this is that from the beginning, the plan for us has been to build a home and 2 ADUs, which would be 5 bedrooms. It's never discussed to limit us to a 3-bedroom home. And in our understanding of how the select board gains its authority to do things and how the zoning administrator has their authority, the select board, in our view, doesn't have the authority to tell us what we can and cannot build on our lot. That falls under zoning bylaws and the zoning administrator, and what we're proposing does meet all zoning for the low density residential that we're in right now.
And it also doesn't change the size or installation of the sewer line. Has no impact on any of the actual construction and what has to specifically do with the right of way, which is what we're applying for. We're not applying for a zoning permit through the select board, the separate department and outside the select board's purview.
Correct. Whether this was a 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom, 5-bedroom, or 7-bedroom, the sewer line would be the same size going to the same manhole. Mumley confirmed that. I believe that communication got to you guys. And so we had suggested in good faith, part of that was the covenants or the deed restrictions. That was a condition that we had suggested at the time in good faith, because we were trying to get the process to move along and we were offering up conditions onto ourselves. But at this point, our understanding is that that's not something that can be applied in a right-of-way permit either. So we have to keep in mind that this is a right-of-way permit. So all the things that go into the conditions need to have to do with the safety and the access of the right-of-way. So zoning and what we build on our land doesn't belong in a right-of-way permit, in our opinion. So also that original suggestion from us about the deed restriction. It's unlawful and it's not an enforceable thing to put in the permit. So those are our two requests. One, that the language be changed for condition 6, this proposed language that we suggested. And 2, that condition 10 be removed from our permit.
Here's what it was legal to do our first born to get this project, and we would have done that.
So I'm going to ask the board, I'm going to ask the 3 members of the board that agreed with this decision to just, how do we feel about condition 6, about the revision that is requested? Go ahead.
I don't have a problem with the adjustment as suggested, or recommended or requested by the LeBlancs. It only makes sense that this boring tool can't turn 90 degrees. And I don't believe this language was intended to be problematic to you. I'll speak for myself, not anybody else. It was maybe a lack of understanding or lack of clarity. The diagrams, it doesn't matter where the misunderstanding was. So I don't see. I mean, I think there is some additional exposure in that you're gonna have to be under the road a bit more as you're making the sweeping arc. And Brett may want to speak to that later, but I certainly may not. But I don't see how else it can be done with a directional boring capacity. Because as soon as I saw your light, I said, yeah, this thing can't turn 90 degrees and work. It just doesn't happen. So the languages we can hammer or whatever, but in theory, I don't have a problem with the request.
Okay. Richard?
And it's been a while and there's been a lot going on. Is there a reason we're going up the easterly side versus the westerly side? Is that because there's other infrastructure on the westerly side right now? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
Would it be better to go that way?
I think there's a couple of reasons. One, the terrain drops off on the westerly side abruptly off the side of the road. And 2, on the northern end of Cottage Street, the water main is already on the westerly side. So if we were to be on the westerly side, we would end up running right next to it if they were to extend the water at some point in the future. So if we keep it on the easterly side, we're on the same side as the sewer line. If they ever run the sewer line up, we'll tie onto it, which is also a condition in here, which is also in the ordinance.
Laura?
Yep, first of all, I'm sorry that I didn't catch that first part, because I know we discussed it in detail about there was no right angle. So I apologize for myself that I did not catch that. The second, state statute says there's no such thing as single family. So, yeah, I completely agree with you guys on both counts. And I apologize. I'm sorry for the inconvenience.
So I'm just going to remind everyone, thank you, Laura, for all that. We're just considering condition 6 right now, but we'll do condition 10 in just a second.
Sorry.
Or in just a couple of minutes. That's okay. So I would entertain a motion then. I know we don't have a suggested motion, I don't believe, but motion would be stated in the positive. I don't think we're looking to change anything from what is being proposed by the LeBlancs.
I've got a question around that, what the motion could be, and if the motion would have to go back to legal because we might not make it quite right.
Check something before you get too in the weeds with it. Could it be this issue would never get to this point had everything just kind of been done the way it normally gets done, which is an engineer designs the sewer line, in which case it would have been shown that it would take a sweeping turn, come up here, take a sweeping turn based on the limitations of the equipment. Just as a thought, could it be said that the sewer line will be installed hugging the easterly side of the road to the best ability as designed by a licensed engineering.
That's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
saying, Melissa, is what do we have to do to make this right
Like, let
the
the
first
perfect
time?
homes do
I,
it.
I don't disagree at all with what you're saying,
Yeah.
but that's my only, I don't want to go any further with this than we've already beaten this.
Dead.
It's dead.
Yeah.
I assume you're okay with the alternative language. If that was the motion that was passed,
Yeah.
you would be fine with that?
Yes.
So maybe that's the motion right there.
Just exactly what that says, and, okay, so I move that, we approve the proposed alternative language for, condition 6 for the LeBlanc sewer line. The sewer force main shall run along the easterly side of Cottage Street right away, maintaining a 10 plus or minus 10-foot separation from the traveled way until a point at which it will start a sweeping turn toward the west, ending at Morristown Water and Light manhole number 9 in a manner consistent with the operating limitations of the directional boring equipment.
Might I just suggest that you change your motion slightly from the current language to the alternative language?
Okay, so
You don't need to read
not
all
to
of
read
that.
the whole thing, so, I move that we change the LeBlanc's,
Condition 6.
condition 6, alignment of the sewer line from the current language to the proposed alternative language.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion by Richard and a second by George. Laura?
We have comments from our attorney that were sent to us. I can pull them up, but I think Richard, I'm good with Richard's motion, so.
Yes, and that seems to be consistent with legal advice, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Any further discussion? Go ahead. Yeah. You can sit down. Yeah, very well.
In fact, I'll, sit down, let's pass this out.
Thank you, Jay. It's okay.
Jerry Throne. So I looked at what was proposed with the directional drilling going on the angle, and I never liked that idea because it's in the area where future facilities can be. The idea of putting it 10 feet out from the edge of the roadway is a good idea. However, to say that the only way to do this is with directional boring and not being able to hit the manhole without putting a curve in it is just not correct. What I've passed out is what it would look like with a 125-foot radius starting at the closest point to the manhole. And it's about 90 feet away. So there's about 90 feet of conflict with the existing roadway. And what can be done is that this directional boring can be done, run all the way up to just point opposite the manhole and then trench across to get that 90-degree connection. That 90-degree connection is very important because you don't want sewage backing up and causing a problem, which you can get if it's less than 90 degrees. Acute angles don't work well for sewage. So you can get your 90-degree angle going into the manhole. You just trench across. It's a short distance to trench and it solves the problem.
Thank you, Jerry. Discussion. Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and just two things on that. Condition 7 requires us to directionally bore it, and there was significant discussion ahead of the hearings about concerns with ditching in the road, or anywhere on Cottage Street for us. And the other thing is that this is just an effluent line. We have a solids tank that will be required to pump. So making any angle into this manhole will be fine because it's just liquid flowing down into the basin of the manhole and then into the sewage system. There's no solids in this.
Thank you, Chris. Any further discussion?
I would follow up with, in one of the 3 sessions we had, I had a discussion with the LeBlancs around backwash, so to speak, and because of the slope. And both they and, more importantly, the Mumley Engineering discussed that wasn't going to happen because of the volume and whatnot. So and so while I appreciate Jerry's note that what we're going to get backed up, we're not going to get solids backed up. We're going to get potentially some flow back, but not, and it's not to the point where it would get back into out of the system itself. It's going to be contained in the system. So while I appreciate Jerry's work, I always do. I think I'd like to leave it the way it was proposed.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote then. So all those in favor of the motion as presented to replace the current language with the proposed alternative language as Richard read, please say aye. George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Laura? I think I heard that, but
Hi,
aye.
I've got a cat away.
And as I know, Chris and Melissa understand, I did vote nay on the original decision, and to be consistent, because I don't see this being any different for me and my decision, I will be voting nay. That will not change the motion. The motion still passes. So that would be 3 to 1 to 1. Conditions 10. I would open that up to the board for conversation. We have existing language and we have requested revision. The pipe is currently proposed at a 1.5 inch diameter, and you're fine with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
I can either.
I do appreciate what you're saying about the select board not having any purview into the zoning bylaws. My only comment to that is that that's not how it was presented to us originally.
Oh, yeah, it was
Which is-
bait and switch. It's just we're
No,
not
it just-
experts in municipal law.
That's my only thing. I wasn't aware that
Sure.
there was any thought of doing anything different than a single family dwelling on the property, when we approved it. And I understand what you're saying, that while it may not be there, that's not what we thought we were approving.
We initially back in March had discussion with Kevin, the lister, and Ron, the consultant, and possibly Brent, I can't remember. I think it was 3 people, about what we could build on the property based on zoning. All got approved. Our application to Morrisville Water and Light was also for a single family home and 2 accessory dwelling units, all those things. It's not a thing that needed to be discussed because it's just not like, it's not what the permits for the road, not for a zone.
That's the impression we were under. So
Yeah.
to see this come out after many hours of discussion.
So many hours.
Is that's my thing, is like, oh, what did we miss?
We tried to pull up, there's no transcripts of the meetings, there's just video to find it. Because if we were asked directly, that would have been our answer. But like I said, our application to the Morrisville Water and Light was for 2 ADUs and a single family home.
Laura? You're muted still.
I'm gonna reference state statute that, yeah, it has nothing to do with the zoning, and state statute said there's no such thing as single family anymore, so. Again, this shouldn't be in there, so it needs to go.
Thank you, Laura. Tyler?
Yeah, I just think it's important to make one distinction for you guys. And so there's two things that are kind of true at the same time here a little bit, is like the LeBlancs are correct in that, typically the select board doesn't have the authority to weigh in on in terms of whether or not something does or doesn't comply with the zoning bylaws. That's my purview or the DRB's purview. But, and this is an important distinction in this matter, and I don't know if it'll impact your decision or not, is that what you are looking at is regulating the use that occurs in your right of way. So you do have the ability to restrict what is in your right of way and what it is used for, which could, in theory, I'm not saying you should do this, I'm saying it could have the impact of limiting development of other properties, not from a zoning standpoint, but from a fact that it's your right of way, it's the town's right of way. They have the right to say what gets used in that. So it is an important distinction to make. And again, the LeBlancs are correct that assuming they are building a single family home and assuming that both of the subsequent ADUs are 500 square feet or less, that would be allowed in pretty much any district, because that is a bonus that's baked into having the smaller ADUs. But that's separate from the what type of use do you want to allow in the town's right of way.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And, the advice that we've gotten is that the select board does have the authority to determine what can happen within the right of way. And I know you're not disputing that. And which that includes limiting the pipe size that enters it. Hence the reason for my question just a couple of minutes ago, which effectively limits what can be built. So correct me where I'm wrong, but I mean, I think what's really coming down, what this is really all about is the size of the pipe.
Yeah.
They're going to have to apply for their zoning permits. And that's going to delineate what can happen on that property. What we're here to decide is what happens within our right of way.
Right, and the size of the pipe would change.
Can I speak on?
And the size of the pipe is what seems to be most germane to this condition.
I would agree that what we should do is limit this, hold the LeBlancs to the size of the pipe, which is 1.5 inches, and the design of the system. I think that's where we have input. I will say I went back and spent too many hours rewatching the tape of the 3 sessions, and Melissa did in the first meeting in her opening comments talk about the house and 2 ADUs, 2 single bedroom ADUs. I'm not bringing that up because I think that language should be in here, but it was not a major point, but it was stated. So there was at least one time where the LeBlancs notified us or spoke about 2 additional auxiliary dwelling units. So I think this language should be changed to reflect some of the effect that we're going to limit the use to be limited to the maximum capacity of the proposed force main system with 1.5 inch septic line. That may not be the right language, but I think that's the sentiment that I want to express, that I am supportive of.
If it just says that it's a 1.5 inch line, the state will regulate what can be on the property, because this all has to be approved at a state level.
Okay.
And they're not going to approve a 20-bedroom mansion going into a 1.5 inch line. So
that's my feelings.
Laura.
Yes.
Yeah, you had your hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't take it down.
Okay.
So sorry.
That's okay. Do you have some suggested motion then?
Well, I think the start is okay. Appellants shall restrict the use or the use should be limited to the maximum capacity of the proposed force main system, which is a 1.5-inch septic line. There may be better ways to say that, and I would be open to it, and I didn't put it in the form of a motion. I'm in 10.
Under current language?
Under the current language, I want to basically take almost all of that out.
Okay.
And start with the appellants the appellant's use. So actually, I'm taking it all out other than the word appellants. Appellant's use should be or will be limited to the maximum capacity of the proposed force main system and the 1.5-inch septic line pipe. And maybe we don't need the word pipe.
Okay, so appellants will be limited to,
The maximum capacity of the proposed force main system, which includes a 1.5-inch septic line. Happy to make revisions if people want to, or I can make it into a motion.
so I'm writing this really quickly here. I want to make sure I had this right. Appellants will be limited. So we're going to change current language. We're going to get rid of everything that was there under number 10, including subsection A. Going to get rid of that too.
Hadn't thought about that.
Can I make a suggestion?
Can I let me just get this right first. Appellants will be limited to the maximum capacity of the force main system
1.5-inch pipe.
of a force main
Feeding.
system, which includes a 1.5-inch line.
1.5-inch line feeding the force main system or.
Okay, that's
Okay.
Yeah.
So of a maximum capacity of a system, which includes a 1.5-inch line that feeds a
1.5-inch line feeding the force main system. Does that sound?
I'm going to read it one more time. So appellants will be limited to the maximum capacity of a system, which includes a 1.5-inch line feeding the force main system.
Appellants will be limited to the maximum capacity of a 1.5-inch line feeding a force main system at their 265 Cottage Street address. Something to that.
I'm good with that.
Okay, that's even shorter. So appellants will be limited to the maximum capacity of a 1.5-inch line feeding the force main system.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just add a sentence to the already approved revision to condition 6, which is more on the technical basis of what we're doing. So it seems like an appropriate place to put the dimension of the line, and just get rid of condition 10 completely. So add your sentence, the maximum of 1.5-inch line shall be installed at the end of the proposed language for condition 6.
I'm still looking at subsection A under
Yeah.
condition
And
A.
I think subsection A does need to be modified.
I believe it does too. So would you like to modify it? I think I know what you're going to do.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm going to keep the beginning language. Construction/boring for this sewer line shall not commence until the appellants have entered into a license agreement with the town. Period. Cancel everything else out.
Okay, good. I agree. Well. Richard?
I'm good with that.
Laura, are you following along with this?
Yes.
Okay, great. So condition 10 in its entirety would read, appellants will be limited to the maximum capacity of a 1.5-inch line feeding the force main system. Construction/boring for the sewer line will not commence until the appellants have entered into a license agreement with the town, period. That's what I have for language. That's not a motion yet. That's just suggested language.
I'll move that language.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion by George, second by Richard. Judy, do you need me to read that again? Okay, good. Why am I not surprised? Discussion. Laura, you heard all that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, hearing no discussion. All those in favor. Go ahead. Yeah, come on up.
Was it done? No, it's all right. I'm gonna. The reason I got this written, because I don't want to get off topic, because I'm really irritated. So I'm gonna just read this. I cannot stress enough how much I'd rather be anywhere but here tonight. But what has been done or attempted to be done to these outstanding town residents is beyond the pale. In good conscience, I can't stand by silently. This all began last April with a routine, straightforward building permit request. The applicants applied, followed every statute ordinance required by our town. Yet for reasons that were unclear then and have since proven to be unwarranted, the town manager rejected that permit. Why the inexperienced town manager and inexperienced maintenance supervisor and inexperienced town zoning director was even involved in this decision, frankly, is a mystery. Naturally, Mr. and Mrs. LeBlanc appealed. During that hearing, the manager of the town's water and light department testified clearly and unequivocally that under our current ordinances, that a blank sewer line request was legal and permissible. I was there at all those meetings. Yet the appeal board, the appeal board, agreed and overturned the town manager's objection by a 3-1 decision. And then, incredibly, you added requirements that defy both logic and precedent, which somebody, I guess, didn't even understand were there. Forcing the Blanks to install a 90-degree elbow in the board sewer line and restricting the number of bedrooms in their home. I don't think I need to elaborate on the problems that can and likely would arise with a 90-degree bend in the board sewer line. Simply put, it is impossible. I also ask, on what authority do you believe you can dictate the number of bedrooms a resident may have in their house? I do believe that that's plainly within the jurisdiction of the zoning and the development review board. The people of Morristown, deserve to know the injustice being imposed on respected residents who have done everything right. As for the record, I assume you are aware that Melissa LeBlanc has served at the DRB for many years and is exceptionally well-versed in our town's ordinances and our regulations, and follows them to the letter. And have to go through this is just an injustice from your lack of understanding of what was going on. There's time to do the right thing. Grant their permit without conditions. They have already endured enough unnecessary and unreasonable obstacles and cost.
Thank you, Tom.
And finally, there is no place. I'll skip that because you're not doing it. I would like to ask, John, you were the negative vote. I would like to ask what you based your negative vote, no vote on.
Very simply, the testimony that was provided by the town and the superintendent of highways. I'll just leave it at that. That's not part of the agenda tonight, so I'm not going to get into that.
Full disclosure, but transparency, I think it would help. Even after the town, the village manager said that it was permissible, you went in the other direction. Okay, thank you.
Certainly not say it was that simple. Okay. I would,
All right, now I have to say my piece. Thank you, Tom. Bunch of self-serving.
excuse me,
Junk.
you're talking to me. Talking to me.
Okay. I don't know where anybody's coming from on this because you have no right to approve this. The bylaws, or the ordinances rather, are clear. Their property does not border on a sewer main. And I think that you've bent over backwards to accommodate these people, and I'm glad to see that an accommodation was made. But to stand here and make a statement just to hear yourself and make yourself feel better is not beneficial to this town.
Thank you,
And
Jerry.
it has to stop.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you very much.
Don't tell me
Folks,
what to
hey,
do.
gentlemen, that's enough. I don't want to ask you to leave. Okay? You're right. Enough has been said. So we have a motion right now. I'm going to read it one last time. The motion is to change the language for condition 10, building restrictions. Appellants will, this is the new language, appellants will be limited to the maximum capacity of a 1.5 inch line feeding the force main system. Construction/boring for this sewer line shall not commence until the appellants have entered into a license agreement with the town, period. All those in favor with the motion as read, please say aye. George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Laura?
Hi.
And the chair votes nay. That would be 3 to 1 to 1. Thank you very much. Okay, old business. We were supposed to be here a while ago. Thank you for waiting. We have a guest in the room. The old business is it's a motion to convey land to the Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. Robin, I'm sorry, I don't have your last name.
Pierce.
Robin Pierce is here representing Habitat for Humanity. Robin has sent us a letter. I guess I could have read your name off the letter. No, name wasn't on there, but we have a letter from David Mullen representing Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. And would you like to make a short presentation?
Sure. I had left off a map. I was hoping it would be here. You'd stick it up in the wall somewhere, that'd be super.
Yeah.
You don't have anything else? Questions?
Go ahead, Robin.
So these are all schematics. It's often set in stone. I did meet with Jordan earlier today, and we walked through what we were going to try and do. I did look in this corner. You have a wheelchair accessible space. Seems like the furthest way, point away from where anybody might want to go. So I was thinking as part of that, just to add some value, we could go over to here. So it's actually the closest point. Closest point to the sidewalk and make it easier for somebody with a disability.
Well, that's from that northern corner for those people that aren't looking at the map.
Yeah, because I'm blocking it.
Northern corner to just
to
spot
here.
just south of the new entrance.
Yes. And I was saying to Judy that, I put the building in this way. Maybe if we turned it this way, we could push everything further to the north. So we wouldn't be impacting the parking as much. From the last time I read the code, it said you need 2,000 square feet for a single family home. So that's one of the control points. I don't think we want to go and ask for a waiver because sometimes that's Russian roulette. We just like to have what we need to get what we're asking for. I think perhaps not in that letter, but in an email I sent previously, I told people we were talking to Greg from the tech center, and they're very keen to work with us on this. We've actually asked a few people who work in the municipality to give us a price to modify the parking areas. Jordan and I did measure the spaces. Generally, parking spaces 9 by 18. Some were 9.5, some were different. So I'm wondering if we actually restripe it, will we find a space that we can't see at the moment? As you bring the, the spaces down to the size that is generally required. So we're hoping we can move forward on this. We've been talking about it for a while now.
Right.
And we're hoping probably in the spring. We would have to tell the tech center now. Hopefully they have a queue, get into their queue, and maybe we can get something in the ground starting in the spring if we can move forward with this. I will say that the money that we've been talking about, every single dollar we spend over and above what we had planned to spend is something that increases the price of the house. We sell it for exactly what it costs us, not a penny more. So we're very aware of the cost of acquiring land. That's why we've been working with municipalities. I think I told you that Heinsberg actually gave us money to build on a property in Heinsberg. And the village of Swanton are selling us a piece of land for very little money in order to build it perpetually affordable homes. So we're hoping we can work with the town and move forward with this, because it's Morristown's a place we want to be. We really want to be. I think you were at the opening for the All Street House.
Yes.
I mean, they're nice houses. We reckon it's $500 a year to heat them.
Yeah.
If you don't leave your windows open when it's -20. But Efficiency Vermont, we work with them. They test our homes and they tell us the homes that we build are among the most efficient they ever test. So it's important we look at everything. We look at the cost of materials, the cost to maintain them. We try to make them as energy efficient, and there's the least amount of money possible is spent to maintain them over the years. And I actually was listening to the radio NPR driving up here today and talked about perpetually affordable housing and how important it is, because it's not just something you're doing for the person that moves in tomorrow, it's for generations to come.
Thank you, Robin. Just to summarize very quickly some of the key points that are in the letter here that the board has had to look at over the weekend. You are offering $50,000 for the property.
Yes.
To the town. And you're also offering to restripe that parking area, so at a cost not to exceed $10,000. And our highway superintendent did meet with you today, and
he thought that was
seems to agree that
yes,
seems to agree that it would not be over $10,000.
He was very positive, actually. He's very nice.
Yeah, that was a very reasonable number. The only thing I would add is, would Habitat for Humanity be willing to just do the survey for that property? And just to make sure that the boundaries and the land that we are conveying is that we all agree what in fact it is.
Yeah, I was confused. I thought at the last meeting, the board had asked Brent to do it, but he informed me that they hadn't. A meets and bonds survey is very expensive. I could have priced it. You didn't have it priced.
No, you sent in a January email that Habitat for Humanity would do it.
Right. So we'll check to see the price of it. But, if it's a $10,000 survey, then, we can't build the house.
Rob, can you mention about the grants drying up?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of the grants have dried up. In fact, we had one project that we're having a 10th look at because the money just isn't there and we're not sure if we can make it work. I mean, is there an engineer that the town generally works with? Survey engineer?
Brent, do you have a thought on that?
No, we're getting, and just to get the appraisal done for this property took months to find somebody that would do it. I'm not aware of any engineer that we utilize, but I haven't been here. I've been here 18 months, so I can check into it. But just to, for the select board, when Robin forwarded this, I want to make sure that both the zoning and the road commissioner thought that this was an acceptable offer so that they could both speak to the select board. I don't know if Tyler's still, he's still here, but I'll read his email and he can comment further if you'd like. But I asked Tyler, do you see any concerns that you or DRB need a meets and bounds survey or anything else to consider this future zoning permit? He responded back, just wanted to give you a quick recap of our conversation about this project. As I mentioned, most of this is straightforward. The home and boundary adjustment are fairly straightforward. would only require a zoning permit. However, if the town intends to sell this to Habitat for Humanity, both lots should be surveyed to make sure the boundaries are accurate. Once that's done, the permitting should be straightforward. So that's the recommendation of the zoning administrator. No, I would ask you to just check in with Tyler for.
Tyler, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I will say, so typically what I would require if somebody was coming in to build a house, and like usually for like a single family home, is I'd need either a copy of the wastewater permit or something from water sewer department noting the allocation for the property. I require exterior elevations for the structure. That could be in a number of forms, depending on what it is. Obviously the more intense the use, like the better the quality of the application materials I like to see. A shed's different than a house, right? So a lot of times I'll take somebody's hand-drawn drawings for a shed because it's a shed. Usually for a house, I do take kind of a range. I do take, hand-drawn stuff, but I generally will prefer, and most of the times people already have it, the plans for the house. So that way I can, just make sure that, the exterior elevations match up. As far as the location goes, right, I've taken a number of different forms of stuff for that. It can range anywhere from something from the A&R Atlas website, depending on what the site is, right? Because while those aren't a survey, they're accurate enough that, say, on a larger parcel, it's even if it's off by, what's shown is off by, 10 or 20 feet. If we're talking a parcel that's, a full acre, and the house is in the middle of it, that's not really a big deal. Obviously the smaller the lot, the tighter it is in like the village context, right? That's a little different because we do have setback requirements and stuff for that. So you do want to make sure that those lot lines are accurate. And also how it was presented to me at one point was that there's potentially a boundary line adjustment involved in this project. If there is a boundary line adjustment, then the property would need to be resurveyed because we would need to have a plat recorded to make sure that, to confirm what the actual boundaries of the two lots are. That would be a requirement for a boundary line survey. If there is no boundary line survey required, that's really at your, if you're selling them the property, that's really at your discretion, but you would probably want to make sure that we know what the boundaries are of the lot if we're going to sell it, especially if there's going to be work that's done, to the parking area as a result of this project. Yeah, happy to answer any other questions. So again, the zoning end of it, straightforward. I mean, this is not a complicated project as far as that's concerned. This is pretty much everyday stuff.
So it is possible a boundary line survey would not be required?
Because there are two lots right now. There's two lots that exist.
Say that one more.
There are two lots that are over there. They're held in, I believe, right now, common ownership of the town, if I'm understanding this correctly. And so if the town, again, if you're not proposing to adjust the boundary of any of those lots, then relatively straightforward. I would just need to make sure that the structure in question meets the setbacks for that district. We need to make sure, they'd have to get a curb cut for it, access permit, all that. Make sure they got a wastewater allocation for the site. And then I get the exterior elevations, and I can't guarantee I would approve it, but I would be hard pressed to imagine a reason why I wouldn't if I had all that stuff and I didn't see any issues.
Tyler, I think the select board is just looking for, should they take what you wrote in your email literally, or are you giving them flexibility?
I'm giving them flexibility, and what I meant is when I talked to you is that I would typically encourage somebody to probably have if you're going to sell the property, probably make sure that you know what the boundaries of it are before you sell it, just to make sure that, there isn't any issues with that from the town's perspective. But you're the sellers, right? If you feel good selling it as is, then sell it as is. I would say that probably, again, if the Habitat for Humanity is asking you to adjust the lot boundary, then that changes it. And yes, you would have to have a survey done as part of that. But if they're not proposing that and the town's good with selling it as is and doesn't want to have it surveyed, that's really at the town's, that's your decision to make. I'd say that would probably be unusual to see a property sold without making sure it's surveyed, but.
Tyler,
Go ahead, George.
you're saying that currently on our maps, there are two properties there, both owned by the town. Is that correct?
That is my understanding of it here. Let me see here. I got the our GIS map pulled up here. Just bear with me a moment.
Sure.
Yes, so if it's on Richmond Street and Park Street, which I believe is what we're talking about, the northernmost portion of that is, is kind of this little triangle. That's one lot, and that is parcel ID, bear with me here, 21. I would read it as 21-199. And then you got the next one, which is 21-200. So it's that smaller triangle that's up there. Now for that particular district, bear with me here. Zoning map. That is in the high density residential zoning district. And let's see here. Again, bear with me here. I'm just trying to pull up I usually have a hard copy of the regs in front of me. I don't at the moment. So the setbacks you'd be looking at for the HDR. Let's see here. HDR, okay. Minimum max front setback is.
No, we're looking at Tyler.
Yep.
They're not asking for setback information, so just if you could stick to the question at hand, what do you recommend to the select board for this property transfer?
Do we need a surveyor?
What I'm trying to say to them is that if they wanted to have a survey done for it, it would not be unusual for a sale like this. I mean, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea given that where that top part of that lot is, that triangle, that's pretty small. And the reason I was reading the setbacks is that if they're proposing to build a house, right, I need to make sure that the house is built outside of the setbacks. So they want to make sure they have enough land, right, to make sure that they can do what they need to do with the house without running into setback problems.
Yeah, go ahead, George.
So I think if Habitat for Humanity is willing to accept the existing boundaries for the triangle component, the part that you want to use, because I'm quite sure it was two, because at one time there was an old trailer that was there and the library used it as storage for donated books and a bunch of other stuff. And I believe they weren't using that at the owner's permission. We had bought that land by then when we went through the whole, maybe the town hall and the library were going to be one building. I think that had all been, that was a while back, but there was a plan before we got into here to add on to the library, which then happened individually, and attach it with the town hall. So there were two structures using one heating system, et cetera, and relocate Richmond Street. So I believe that's when that triangle was acquired by the town in anticipation of potentially the voters supporting that, which then didn't go, and the town moved on. And so did the library individually. So if that's not a concern to Habitat for Humanity, I don't have a real need to see a $10,000 survey be done. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Laura, is your hand up again?
Yes. Are there not surveys on record? We've been dealing with this for a while, and Todd did a tremendous amount of work. Initially, he was directed by Carrie to help assist find property. So I think my understanding was all this was cleared and done. And I certainly am not in agreement with charging them $10,000 to do a survey. I mean, that just seems crazy, but I would like us to look back at the work that has already been done by Todd Thomas and what surveys there are.
Do we know anything about the last survey that was done on this property?
So from what I could tell, looking at the GIS site, is if a property's been surveyed on the map, it'll have a particular designation on it, which that'll note like AC with a parentheses S. That means that the property's been surveyed or has had one recorded recently. These two have not. It doesn't mean that there isn't one that doesn't exist, right? But chances are it's an older one. And I believe the ones that Todd did were not for this location, but were for other locations in town. I believe where they constructed, there was a house that was built, I believe, for Habitat Humanity. I want to say on the way over towards Copley, I believe that I forget the name of the street exactly off the top of my head, but where you turn to go up to the country club or drive over to the hospital. I believe there was one on the right that was built a couple of years ago. I could be wrong, but I think that's the one that he looked at.
Do we make any motion conditional on there being an acceptable recent survey?
Well, I just want to speak to Tyler. We saw all this information, Habitat for Humanity, and Judy's there. She knows about it. Again, this has been going on for a while. And so Todd very specifically recommended this property at the direction of Carrie, who was our interim, and proposed it to Habitat for Humanity.
Agreed. Yes, I agree with that. The question is, do we need a survey for this? And if there's not a recent acceptable survey, are we then putting ourselves in a problem down the road? I mean, we're accepting $50,000 for this land, and if we don't have a proper survey, are we going to be liable for something in the future? If I'm thinking, like, what if property owner 198 decides to challenge it without a survey?
One of the things, Judy Bickford, one of the things I can suggest is within the $50,000 is using some of that to finish the survey. Because right now, because of our current federal government, the grants that Habitat uses are diminishing. So the more that we talk about it, the longer the time period goes on, there's not going to be any money. We can't do an affordable house for anybody in this community then.
No, I'd like to get this done tonight, Judy, for sure. It's been too long, and it's just a matter of how to put this motion together.
So can I?
Yeah.
So to add on to Judy's comment, and Tyler's comment about the yes after the survey, both of these lots are owned by the town, and it appears that neither one of them have been surveyed. So in this transaction, we would actually know where our lines were for the other property as well when we did a survey. And so it would ultimately benefit the town to have a solid survey, because we've run into some things without having surveys in the recent past. So if we could figure out a way to get this done tonight, I mean, I agree with Don that that's just another piece to that.
Do we have any idea what a survey would actually cost?
Trying to look for Becky Gilson did one related to the library when after the select board entered into allowing for a library, and a developer, a resident complained that you gave up land without a proper authority. So I involved Becky Gilson in that. I'm looking for her invoice for that. I think I would recall if it was $10,000, but I can't.
Seems high to me.
Seems high to me too, but I don't know. I haven't had a survey done in a long time.
If you had just to put it in perspective, if you had a lot out in the middle of the woods somewhere that was valued at $5,000 an acre, but you had to have it surveyed, why would you spend $10,000 on a survey for a 5-acre lot that you only sell for $25,000?
Does Habitat for Humanity have any idea what the survey might cost?
Yeah. Maybe we go around and ask and tell people it's for Habitat for Humanity, and hopefully we get a discount. As I like to tell people that we want to work with, we try to turn rhetoric into action. Everybody talks about wanting affordable housing, and we come along and we're saying, this is the opportunity to work with us and take the rhetoric you have in your development plan and your zoning regulations and turn into action.
would Habitat for Humanity be willing to, let's just say that parking lot renovation costs $5,000, take the extra 5,000, put it into a survey?
Yes.
So what about a motion of that Habitat for Humanity would renovate our parking lot? I don't know how that wording is going to go. And,
No, it says it right here.
and
It says it
include,
right- Says it
right.
in there. Says it in right now.
Yeah, that's our proposed language,
Right.
but that's giving, so they're responsible for the entire survey.
No, because it says what you just said was $5,000. So if the parking lot costs $5,000, they take that 10, they still wouldn't be liable for more than the $10,000 on the back end. The way this is read, it says obtaining survey of the lots reconfiguring the existing parking lot at their cost. So that's a moot point.
So then we would be as a town on the hook for any extra cost survey. I mean, the fact that we're getting $50,000 for the town, we still walk away with $48,000 or $45,000. That's still money in the taxpayers' coffers. And one of our motivations for doing this is to get this on the tax roll so that it can generate revenue for the town.
Sorry.
Just looking to see if people think that's wise. Because I think you're right, Richard. I mean, it's in there, isn't it? It's already in there.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Doug. I have a political, and I hate to raise it. The lot is appraised for 72.
Yeah.
And we spent some money getting appraisals, and we waited a long time to get that appraisal. I'm not looking to in any way create additional costs for Habitat for Humanity. But politically, do we need to have this add up to $72,000? And if Habitat for Humanity can do it for $5,000, it's done. I mean, I don't want them to spend $22,000. That's not my goal. My goal is for people who are going to express a concern that we didn't get our money's worth. Do we cover it with in-kind contribution, in-kind work by the Habitat for Humanity group? And if they can get it for a heck of a lot less than 22.
But we're also getting the benefit of the parking lot being reconfigured.
And we are.
So that's another benefit.
We don't have to cover. And if it was just the 5 of us and no other voters, I wouldn't even raise it. But we know we've got people on both sides of the fence around spending money.
We've had this conversation.
We have.
Around the same exact concerns that you're bringing up, and I think we will benefit by adding to the tax base, and we haven't had anyone jumping for joy to say, I want to buy that parcel.
No,
It's
who would
not been.
Yeah, so other than Habitat for Humanity.
I think that I don't disagree, but I think anyone that we've had this conversation 3 times in the last 6 months.
Yep.
So
Judy, and then Laura.
So Judy Bickford, the property was assessed commercially. It has not been a commercial piece of property. So other pieces of property around town that are residential are in like $50,000 range. Just the property of that same size. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Laura?
So, Tyler, this other piece of land, do we own it? Or
Yeah.
does someone else own it?
Well,
Let me
Which
double
other
check here,
land?
real quick. Give me a second.
Because my understanding was that we own it and that it really can't be used for anything else.
Which
You
other-
own both. You own both pieces.
Yeah, so we own the other piece, so we can't be sued, so
Well, the abutting property owners behind it too, because you got the one that's on. Let me see here, 74 Richard Street, which would be the back property line. So
they're not getting anywhere near that back property line. I say we don't bother with the survey. I don't want to run any more costs. They have been, again, this has gone on. We need a house built to get people in it, and to run up more costs for crazy what ifs makes no sense to me.
Okay.
I'll move to authorize the conveyance of municipally owned land to Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity for the purpose of developing affordable housing for a purchase price of $50,000. As part of this agreement, Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity shall be responsible for obtaining a survey of the lots, reconfiguring the existing park and ride at their cost not to exceed $10,000, and securing all necessary permits.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I had a question
Sec,
for you
Tyler.
guys. Yep.
One sec, Tyler. So I have a motion by Richard and a second by George. Go ahead, Tyler.
Just was on the topic of that is, since did you want to waive any of the permitting fees for it? Or should I just permit it the same as, I'm not trying to, and this could be a separate conversation, but that was the only thing I was just thinking since I had you guys here, is that if you were going to waive like if it's residential, you're talking 40 cents a square foot in permitting fees. I mean, it's not huge depending on what the house is, but I can't waive them. So if you guys wanted them waived, then again, it doesn't have to be decided tonight.
Okay.
They could maybe do that separately, but just wanted to put that out there.
Question. So we don't need to do that tonight. We could do that in the future.
We could request that when we make the application to DOT.
Let's leave that for a future meeting, Tyler.
Yep, just wanted to put that out there. That's all.
Everyone else okay with that? Laura, you okay with that? Laura?
Sorry, yes,
Yeah, you're okay with that?
yes.
Okay. I have a motion. I have a second. Do I have any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion as presented, George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
Laura?
Nay,
Aye, 4-1. The motion carries. Okay, thank you very much, folks. Okay, we have approved the warrants. I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve the warrants.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion by Richard, second by George. Discussion. All those in favor of approving the warrants, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh,
Sorry, George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
Laura? Laura?
abstaining, not there.
That would be 4-0-1. Okay, in terms of the schedule, we have our next select board meeting on December 1st, 2025 at 5:30. On December 8th, it's not on your agenda, folks. We are proposing a select board meeting for the budget presentation. Be a special select board meeting on the 8th for the budget presentation. Monday, December 15th, select board meeting that would be a regular select board meeting at 5:30. And on December 29th, this is also not on your agenda, we would have a planned budget discussion. So the two changes there, the two additions are December 8th for a special select board meeting for the budget presentation, December 29th budget discussion. And I would also remind you all that on December 12th, the select board is responsible for decorating the door for the holiday. So it is our responsibility to take care of the door at the back of the conference room here. Other business?
No.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll move
And
to adjourn.
Judy is willing to help. Thank you, Judy. I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? I have a motion by Richard, second by George to adjourn. All those in favor, George?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
Leah?
Aye.
Laura?
Aye.
That would be unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Good night.